Ah, um, test, live. Save, there we go. My God, this cough won't go away. I wonder why Twitch isn't working. There it is, there we go. Data dashboard. Alright, very good. Let me, no, let's do, uh, uh, let me, let me turn on my camera somehow. Properties, deactivate, activate. Alright, there we go. Uh, Today we will be joined with Doc Respawn. Picked River Nidalee in Fantasy LCS. I think it'll be good enough to win. Wait, Russell, you can pick the champion? Wait, are you playing on Sleeper app? Is it still working? It stopped working for me last split, so I just stopped playing it. What app are you doing in Fantasy LCS? Where is he? Let me just search for him. Doc. Oh, Respawn? What it? There we go. Alright. Let's also, well, no, first let's find out what Doc is doing. This is my right one. Boom. What? Oh, there we go. And then that is not what I was looking for. Twitch.tv. Yeah, I use Sleeper. It's my first split. I used to use Sleeper, and then Sleeper kind of sort of stopped working. So I
76.
oh, there we go.
I have
Okay,
a ton of HP actually. Okay. I'm chilling. I win.
oh,
Let's
he's in the
go.
middle of a game. All
Let's
right.
go.
Well, I guess we'll wait for him to
Like
finish
one of the
before we
things that I
start.
saw in you in a way that didn't screw him over. Yeah, but it's like then there's like less options, you know. Feels bad when you hard commit into it. Oh, nice. Cassiopeia, Syndra.
All right, I guess I'll just
Good round.
go over some of the topics
That alone
while
was
he
massive.
is streaming, right? But yeah, today we got a bunch of. Honestly, the games were. I thought they would be closer. The games were not close at all, which I was kind of sad about. I was hoping that the games would be closer, but they weren't. Obviously, if you see the title, you know exactly what we're going to be talking about. But that's one of the topics. The other one is actually about Impact and whether he's the greatest top laner or not. Um, we shall see. I don't know what side of the argument I'm going to be on. To be honest, like I left the first match to eat after IMT got Soul. Yeah, dude. Honestly, I wish I got an IMT interview because I was actually tilted. The fact that I don't know, it just felt like Renekton itemization could have actually won the game. If he had Visage instead of Kanik, I'm pretty sure he survives, doesn't lose his GA, and then that whole scenario where they throw by Elder doesn't happen. Again, they misplayed multiple times to get to that point, so it's not like that would have won the game. But I got tilted. I obviously, for my personal sake, I would have preferred Immortals to win because it makes it a little bit easier for us to make it into playoffs. It's very difficult now. Like we have to beat FlyQuest. Even a 2-1 would be good, but obviously FlyQuest are looking good, and we're not. We're looking okay. It's gonna be difficult, but it's getting stressful. But it's okay. Let's see.
I'm gonna reforge.
I'll wait before texting him. Oops. Um. Yeah, them losing was crazy. I do want to talk about the games. honestly, I did want to talk about the games, but like the way Immortals lost makes me not even want to talk about Immortals. I thought it was funny too. The LTK caster trying to defend Faker, dashing into the whole team. Dude, Faker played so bad. Here's the thing. Look at last year. Don't even look at Spring. Spring, by the way, Faker was like top 2 mid laner. He was playing out of his mind. Look at last year at Worlds. Faker Azir. Straight up clutch, like Worlds defining play. And then look at his Azir game 2 against NG and how he couldn't dash and owner had to flash on Vi to protect him and like died because of it. That even on Azir, I'm not even talking about 80 minutes. Look at him play Azir. He couldn't shuffle. He forgot how to play his champion. He did a mistake I make, right? My name isn't Faker. I'm not a 4-time world champion, 10-time LCK. Like, I don't have any of that. And yet he's like making mistakes multiple times that are on the level of like some random. I don't know what's happening to Faker, but I will bring this up with when Doc joins. He's still in his game. I think there are 3 more players left. Looks like a close game.
There we go. Okay, that's one.
He had one nice shuffle, but yeah, the bot play was reportable. Yeah, it really was. And you can justify with, oh, like he messed up his. Here's the thing: you build muscle memory. So after a while, it's actually hard to mess up those like inputs because you've done it thousands of times, and somehow he messes that up. So I don't know. I doubt we're gonna get like an Ashley Kang interview with him or with someone close to him that can sort of explain. Like a Coma interview would be nice. I doubt we're gonna get anything like that, but I would really like to get into the mind of that player and figure out what's happening. I will say this before because the show hasn't started yet, right? But I am on the side of like Faker should not be retiring. He needs to figure out what's causing him because last split he was playing phenomenal. So it's not even that he's maybe it is burnout. Maybe he needs to take some time off. Like whatever it is, I want him to figure it out because I still want to see Faker playing the game. I don't want him to retire. But who knows? Maybe that's Doc Respawn's position, and I have to take the position of Faker having to retire. I'll do it. Like, yeah, I'll do it. But I don't. I think he should be benched at least. Give him a rest. Hey, Stone Trooper. We'll get to that when the show starts. I just like talking a little bit about the topics. I'm waiting for my guest. He's in the middle of a TFT game, which looks like he might be winning. I actually have never played TF. I played TFT once, so I have no idea what's going on. But we can watch it together once I'm done. Yeah, so the topics would be about Impact, Faker. We haven't watched like the games obviously, but tomorrow's the Team Liquid C9 game. I'll talk a little bit about Immortals. I will talk about NRG because I mean, oh my god, NRG looked horrible. Like, yeah, it's hard too because owner can't play any meta AV champs because Faker's limited pool. I don't even think it's Faker's limited pool. I think it's the play style. They cannot play around jungle. The times owner carries is when owner is facilitating all of his teams. Like think of like a resource bar, right? And owner is taking his time and spending it so that everyone else can have resources. Once other people have to sacrifice their time and resources so owner gets the resources, that team completely and entirely collapses. So I don't even think it's his pool. He's played like Faker has played Tristana, even if he sucks at it. He's played Corki. Like Faker doesn't suck at Corki. Come on, he played Azir Corki for years, right? No one ever complained about his Corki. It's just, I guess I don't even think are they on the patch where it's nerfed. I think they just started on the patch where Corki's nerfed. Still, like, yeah, I don't think they can play around jungle to begin with, and yeah, I don't know. The video, I don't know if everyone saw it, but the video of Faker banging his head on the wall, it says a lot. There were no words spoken, but that said 1,000 words, in my opinion. Yeah, those are the 4 main topics. If we finish a little early, I might throw in a couple. Since Corki has been reworked, I don't feel I had a great Corki game. Yeah, but again, he was reworked in this split, and since MSI, he hasn't been playing well, so I don't know if it's... Wait, was it reworked? Yeah, it was reworked this split, right? Wait, was he reworked during off-season? I think it was in the mid-season. Man, my memory. I'm pretty sure it was mid-season. Not during the preseason. But either way, I agree. I don't think he's had many good games to begin with. I think he had an Ari game where he played very well against G2 and completely destroyed them. But he had a couple good Azir games here and there. But yeah, since MSI, he has not played very well, which is kind of sad. Let's take a look at what Doc is doing. Oh wow, you guys can't even see me this entire time. I'm just talking. You guys are watching TFT. Oops, I should not destroy your eyes with the transition.
Any of the champs, like there's no champ in the game that does like that. You got.
It even would play at
Okay,
even
nice.
APA scold him,
That's,
soloed
you
him.
got
Yeah,
three.
MSI was rough. It was very sad to see him like. Yeah. It's kind of if he was just declining throughout the years, it would be one thing. But the fact that he had a phenomenal spring and just an abysmal summer, I don't know if it's burnout, what it is. I will probably make that argument on the show when it starts. But yeah, let's see.
Oh, game of permanent 3-star.
Text. That is not what I wanted. Properties.
Oh wow, that doesn't really help me at all. But what does Wukong even do?
Okay. All right. There we go.
Vanguard Syndra gives 9 gold for 3 econ. That's true. Oh, I can take this off of her. Okay. Oh, yeah, I should have done that.
Yeah. What is going on? Hot take. Wait. Let me mute. Hot take. But most of Worlds, Faker didn't even play like the usual Faker. Owner was the MVP of that run. Oh, absolutely. How is that a hot take? Owner was so good. Owner was the best jungler in the world at that tournament. And that's saying a lot. Hey, SLJ. I think it needs to be argument that Palafox is the most overrated LCS mid in a long time. Is he overrated? Everyone says he's inting. He even admits multiple times on Twitter, like, I am actively inting. There we go. Oh no, now it's out of focus. There we go. Yeah. He admitted that he's Palafox. I will be talking about the NRG games. Also, if you guys have topics, just throw them in. That Palafox dashing in multiple times on Lucian to fed Zeri and dying was just maybe it's champ pool. Like maybe he just sucks at these champions, but yeah, I'm quite disappointed in the fall. Like remember when Palafox was the father of APA and Team Liquid? Like Team Liquid couldn't do anything against NRG because Palafox would absolutely gap APA, and now it doesn't even look like he's a top 5 mid laner. Like okay, I would put Jojo. I would put Quid. I would put Quid. Jensen kind of sort of gapped them, so you kind of have to put Jensen above him. Obviously, you would put APA and you would put Quad, so that's like 5 already on top. And then he's like what Mask / Insanity level, and I feel like Insanity has been playing better. Yeah, he's probably bottom 2. Actually, you know what? That is the argument. He is for NRG. I will do. Wait, what just happened? Oh, okay. All right, just messaging Doc. He's almost done with this game.
This thing is 6,000.
All right, Palafox, bottom 2 mid laners. All right, Palafox is just a bad player. If you look at him historically, no, I disagree with that. That I disagree with. If it's not Yan, I don't want to see Lucian in NA. It just looks so useless. Hey, what's his name had a good Lucian game? Insanity. He's always been a Lucian mid player, and like he stomped Jojo Pune last year with last year, whatever. Last year. Palafox is just a bad player. If you look at him historically, not really. Flopped on Fly, but that FlyQuest team, like we know now, had so many problems that I find it. What is not improper? Like dishonest, I guess, to point just at specifically his play. It was also his first split. Like, yeah, wasn't the best player on CLG, and majority of his time on NRG he was ass. I don't think he was ass. I think he was like legitimately an okay player, and then he stepped up. I don't think he was bad historically. Palafox needs. Oh, okay, awesome. All right, all right. I'll call you. All right, where he's done with this. Let's go to Discord. Where's Discord? Palafox needs playmaking champions like Nico Ari. Yeah, I think his Nico Ari are pretty good. He's not a carry guy. All right. Let me give him a call. Is it gonna work?
Hey, what's up, man?
Yo, how's it going?
Good, good. Do you want video or how do you want to do it?
Yeah, ideally. Would you be able to do that? I know that.
Yeah.
All
Of
right,
course.
cool.
Let me switch my stream over there.
Okay. Yeah, I have to
Let me
like
go
do a bunch of stuff to make it work because OBS
Okay.
and yeah. All right, there we go.
I'm gonna have to change some of these titles. I did not have it set up for this.
Save.
Cloud.
Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for inviting me. I love talking about stuff, random stuff. All right, let me pop this out. And I need to turn on my camera.
All right.
All right. And of course, Discord does this thing where it flips. Where is it? Oh, streamer mode, that's right. Where it flips, it randomly flips like which side I'm on every time. So
Oh yeah, I gave up on ever trying to
there
do
we go.
anything.
All right, got it. You know what? I'm just gonna leave it. I don't have all the nice overlay stuff, right? Well, if I do it right, I should do it right. I will 1 second, just format this so it looks better.
Oh, take your time.
And then I'm gonna flip our names. I don't understand how it's like literally every single time I have to flip it. Like, why is why is
Yeah,
it like
I
that?
just gave up.
Okay. All right, I think we're good. That looks good enough. Cool. So yeah, I already kind of introduced you to my chat, but feel free to introduce yourself again. Probably go into more detail than what I said.
All right, yeah, I'm Cloud Sitki. I do interviews for the LCS, but I also make content in general. I'm a Shopify fan, so you will find me making a lot of content for Shopify. Yeah, this show is a debate show where we have a bunch of topics and then we just have to debate them. So a lot of times, Doc might get the side of argument that he doesn't agree with, but he's gotta gotta do what you gotta do.
You know what
Last,
though? I'm about it. I
yeah,
like actually I do this a lot online. Playing devil's advocate, right? Like
Mhm.
trying to view things from a perspective that you may not necessarily agree with, but you can understand. I think it helps with empathizing. So
Yeah, I made the argument that Blabber should be kicked off of C9, and I slowly started convincing myself. I was like, wait, hold up. Look, Blabber's my boy. He's from Maryland. I'm from Maryland. Like, come on. But then, yeah, it's quite fine. I really enjoyed the pilot episode with David. And now, yeah, so if you guys don't know who Doc Respawn is, he's a physical therapist that's worked with a lot of different LCS and Valorant, and different, esports orgs. He's done some really cool stuff. You can see I have an interview with him on my channel. I also linked his channel in the chat, so you should definitely check him out. Just in case you play video games, which you probably do since you watch this channel, he talks a lot about just how to play video games and remain healthy so that you don't get injured, so you don't have to go to a physical therapist when you do get injured. So definitely check out his channel and his TikTok. He posts challenges whenever his patients cancel, and sometimes they're doable, and sometimes I'm like, why would you even do that?
that's why it's a challenge, you know?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, like I said, I always enjoy talking with you and talking about the stuff that you're into. So let's get into it. I'm happy to see where we go with this stuff. I have no idea what's coming, by the way.
All right. since you don't really know what's coming next, I will give you the option. Maybe like
Okay.
two of them you get to pick, one of them I get to pick, and we'll do like
Sounds
that.
good.
But my first topic is Palafox is a bottom 2 mid laner right now in North America.
I mean,
Do you agree?
are
Disagree?
you okay? Stats wise, results wise, yeah. Like, I mean, if you just look at it, right? Like, I mean, if you just watch their most recent kind of performance against Dig, that was pretty bad. Like, and I've worked with Palafox a lot in the past. He used to be on C9 Academy. Very, very good. And obviously, he is a competent mid laner when it comes to his potential. Like we saw him lane against Faker, right? Palafaker is a thing. Like he's comfortable playing against very high levels of competition. This has been one of his worst splits I've ever seen. Like, and I think it's not just him. I think that like the whole team is just disjointed, looks all over the place. Specifically as mid laner, your job also becomes infinitely harder when you're not playing around any, like there's no clear direction on the team. It's one of the worst roles, honestly. If your team is, and anyone who's played League knows this, if you're playing mid lane, your jungler's behind, your bot lane's losing, you're so screwed because you're going to mate, what do you do? Try to leave your lane and roam to a losing lane, or you sit there and you get camped by the enemy jungler. It's like, it's just, it's miserable. Like, so I feel bad for him because I don't think it's a reflection of him as a player. And I honestly don't believe in the whole concept of esports drop-offs. Like, oh, this player's washed. You know, like they used to be good, they lost their touch. I do think it happens to some players later on, but it's not like a between year thing. It's like over 3 to 4 years, you'll see a drop off. Is Jensen as dominant as Jensen was at his peak? I don't think so. Right? Was Bjergsen same thing? Like at the end of his career? No, of course not. But I don't think it's like, oh, one season to the next, Palafox just became incompetent. I think it's more so there's some dysfunctional stuff going on with that team as a whole, and it makes his job really hard.
You kind of defended him towards the end, so I'm actually going to go the other way and say that he is a bottom 2 mid laner right now, and it's not the problem of his team. I think when you look at mid lane right now, it is absolutely OP. Like there's so much resources, time, attention that is being put into mid lane, and he is being fed all of these resources, and he is actively throwing them away. He's trying to do these superhero plays where you see them, they get their kills on Dignitas. They don't need to overchase, and then he overchases, dashes, flashes, gets killed multiple times. And it's not the first time this has happened. Last split, playing against Rich, who's not Rich, sorry. Who did they bring in mid lane on Dignitas?
Well, this split was, well, obviously Jensen. But,
last split it was Rich top, and then the mid laner was Dove. Yeah,
Dove.
So
Yeah,
Dove absolutely put Palafox in the dumpster to the point that Palafox was like actively, like he got solo killed, TPs into lane, walks up, gets like 60% of the HP taken in a trade, and then has to walk back. And even afterwards, he was like, I don't know what I was doing. Ever since that play, he has actively been performing as a bottom 2 mid laner. If he had 10 like LCS teams, he would still be bottom 2. That's how bad he's playing.
Sure. I guess, yeah, you're right. Because it sounds like I'm defending him, but I'm defending his capability. I don't think he's a bad mid laner. I think right now he's playing bad. I think he's definitely performing badly, and I don't know if it's a reflection of his skill level relative to other mid laners right now, or if it's again kind of indicative of an ongoing team issue. Maybe he's tilted, you know, like that happens. Maybe he's just frustrated. Maybe he's autopiloting. Maybe he's going into games thinking like, you know, if I don't carry these guys, we're not going to win. And so he overdoes things, and then ends up actually costing them a lot of games. It's a whole, like, who on NRG right now is winning?
The bottom lane. They won both games. They were actively diving and, you know, getting sums and stuff. And
I would say, you know what though, contracts is still playing for you. Like he's consistent. I think Dokla has been a liability to a lot of games. Like it makes it hard. But no, I could see your point. I think any team that's bottom 3 in the standings is probably gonna have a bottom 2 mid laner stats wise as well, unless they were like Jojo Pune when on EG, where he was just like solo carrying every game. But it's tough because I don't think Palafox is historically been this bad ever. But yeah, this split looks pretty miserable. And from my early season projections, I honestly thought NRG was gonna have more of a bounce back compared to spring. So I'm a little disappointed in them. it just feels like they have been getting worse as the split's been going, rather or leveling off. They started really bad, they got a little bit better, and then they kind of tapered off again, and now they're like stuck in this perennial bottom three roles. Like it doesn't look good.
I don't actually think they've gotten better. I think they played against a
That's
like
fair
a
too.
disorganized Shopify. Like if we played them this week again, I'm pretty sure we would have won that 2-0. Like we look cleaner
Yeah,
than we did.
yeah.
And they beat Immortals, who cannot, for the life of them, close out leads. Like they can be 10,000 gold up, they
Immortals-
just can't. They can't.
Immortals is the most confusing team I think I've seen. Like even today, 100 Thieves. Like what was that, man? Like oh my god.
Yeah, and the games against Energy were like bigger throws. Tactical actively like walked all the way up without anyone else near him, and then Palafox comes in and shuffles him same spot where Ruler got shuffled,
Yeah.
and they won the game from there. But like it's the same thing where they refuse to win.
And the meta right now actually seems to favor his champ pool. So I don't understand. You're right. Like I don't understand what's going on. It's not like you can't play Azir, you can't play some of these other champs that he likes to play. You know, even like they're not even going into comfort picks. I feel like they're just playing whatever, and then it's not working out for him. So I don't know if it's his laning or is he's not being as precise. Like it's tough. But I do think this is summer too. So in summer, the better teams always get better, right? Like you this is where you start to see the disparity increase usually is TL, C9, FlyQuest, and it's exacerbated, especially the split by the best of threes. I think best of threes has made the records so obviously it's removed the fluke bias, right? Like people have been like, oh, is C9 actually that good in the past splits when they would lose to like Dignitas or they'd lose to Immortals randomly or like Shopify, or NRG was always the one, right? But in a best of three, you don't have those random fluke games get washed under the other two. So now we're seeing, okay, the top three are head and shoulders above everyone else. And, you have like two teams that are like, what, 1 and 2 loss? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's I think it's the split, the parity should have been bigger, but it's not, and it's very strange to me. I would have assumed both of these games would have been 2-1s, and they both looked like they were going to be 2-1s. It looked like Energy were going to win that first game, and it looked like
100 Thieves had no reason winning that game.
Yeah, I talked to Ayla, and he was just like, "Yeah, I'm not really sure. They kind of just let us win."
Yeah, you know what? I don't. Well, this is a slightly different topic, but obviously you saw all the drama and all that on Twitter about Tomo and like the messaging around installing him. And
no,
you see all that?
I missed it.
Oh, so basically, 100 Thieves made a statement like, "Oh, Meech is being benched, or Meech is stepping down due to mental health issues, all this stuff." Golden Glue said, "Hey, the team had to make a decision, and we wish him the best." And then everyone started jumping on it, like, "What do you mean you made a decision? That sounds like you benched him, and then you're using mental health as an excuse to bring Tomo." So it was just bad wording, and I don't work with anyone on the org anymore. I don't know anyone personally like that I've talked to about this. So I don't know what actually happened, if it's that or they're just using it as an excuse. But now what I'm afraid of is that they're going to look at those games and be like, "Oh, see, it was the right move. We put Tomo in, and now we're starting to turn our season around." It's like they kind of threw.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Those aren't games to be proud of. I think is the gist of the argument. It's like just because you won doesn't mean you improved.
Right.
It just means you played against Immortals.
Fans, right? Like if you're not looking at the game analytically, so many fans will be like, "Oh, this team is X number of wins. They're really, really good." And you're like, if you watch their wins, though, oh my gosh, they were like struggling uphill the entire way, and they managed to choke out a random fight, in the last 40 minutes. Like,
NRG's 4 wins were like that.
yeah, exactly. They're not good, right? So if you look at the eyeball, I mean, if you were to tell me with this same record, NRG or Dig, I'm taking Dig every day of the week. Like, it's you just watch the games and you're like, the record doesn't reflect how like not even these teams are right now. It's I don't know. I will see. I'm really excited for the C9 TL series. I do think it's gonna be very close, but from the games I've watched, it feels like TL should be a stronger team, even with a slightly worse record. I feel like they're just better.
Yeah, that's one of the topics we're going to talk about. But I actually want to stick with the mid laner. The next topic is, and I'll let you go first again, whichever side you want.
I'll try to be more on one side this time. I'm sorry.
All right, cool. Should Faker retire? Did you see first of all what happened?
I made a tweet. I was actually up really late last night watching VCT champs because I wanted to see Leviathan play, and so I also happened to catch that T1 end of the game, and I was like, "What is going on?" And so I sent a tweet at like 3:30 in the morning because I was like, that's something you would never expect to see from a player like Faker. You know, at this stage in his career. And I know there's a few different takes on it where people are like, "Oh, it just shows how passionate he still is and all that." But I'm like, if you are a player who's hit every single milestone in this game, you've ascended to the peak of this. How is this a reaction that you have at that point? You know, is it so? There's two things. Is it either he is so frustrated by losing to Chovy and losing to Gen G that this was the culmination of he's like, I cannot beat these people. And it's just, you know, like Michael Jordan, right? Michael Jordan never, ever stopped hating losing. So is it like that? Or is this an indication of he's just burnt out and he's so tired? You know, if it's the latter, I think he could consider, is this a time to retire? Like, is this my last year? I mean, you just won Worlds. What else is there? You know, like are you the only thing he could possibly do at this point to cement his legacy even more is to like pull a golden road off, but that's so unreasonable, you know, like to expect as another trophy to earn. But like, I don't know. I think it really depends on the nature of why that was happening. It does indicate that he's having maladaptive responses to what happened. Like no player in his position should ever respond like that after a game that in reality doesn't really matter. You know, this wasn't a World's final. This wasn't like, you know, he's now somehow not going to have a chance to play. It was very, very odd to see that. And I'm wondering if there's going to be a statement from T1 coming out or not.
Yeah, I'm interested to that too. For people who haven't seen what happened, basically after Faker had an abysmal performance both games, but especially when he was playing on the Azir, he was like not EQing. He was straight up just pressing E without the Q, and then like almost died, and owner had to like flash and die for him, and he was just missing like mechanics that you would be surprised to. On Corki, he was like valking in the wrong direction and everyone was just jumping on him. And so like obviously some people speculate that it was because he was upset and disgusted with his own performance, whatever it is. I mean, we can speculate. But also with the burnout topic, if you look back at this roster starting in 2022, they made it to spring finals. They won that. They went to MSI, made it to game 5 against RNG, lost.
Yeah.
They then made it to the finals of summer, lost to Gen G, went to finals, world finals, game 5, lost to DRX. 2023, they did the same thing, except in MSI, they make it to the lower bracket finals. Then they make it to Worlds. They win Worlds. In the offseason, they have a tournament, a Red Bull tournament. They have to fly all the way to Paris or to France.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly where. And they have to like do all the sponsor stuff. They come back 2024, do the same thing, make it to lower bracket finals in MSI, make it to finals in spring, go all the way to EWC, another tournament that wasn't even there last year. So burnout,
and they won that.
And they won that. They waited all the way to the end, played almost all the games they possibly could, except for one. They won that. And they came back. Like burnout sounds like a real thing.
I'm pretty sure they also played as many games as possible at EWC. I think every single
one game
like,
except the finals was 3-1.
Okay,
but yeah,
that's
basically.
right. That's right. Yeah, almost every game possible in most of those series, they went to the last game. So it's unreasonable to expect any human being to be able to do that and not feel some percentage of burnout. And then when you're talking like Faker specifically, right? Like he's been doing this for 10 plus years. And last year he did have to take time off. He had some nerve issues, he had some arm issues. What I've always said, especially when it comes to esports injuries, 99% of the time the injury is masking the deeper burnout, and the injury is an excuse to stop. So it's not that the injury is not real, but if a player was a rookie and they had some of the injuries that you typically see in esports, they would take a month off or something, they would recover, they'd come right back. None of these injuries are career-ending. The career-ending part is when they decide it's not worth it for me to come back from this, and I'd rather just get healthy. And then, you know, like Uzi took basically a whole year and a half off, came back, played a little bit, didn't do very well, and he's like, you know what, I just don't want to play this anymore. And he stopped. So it's very indicative. It's something I've seen across the board in almost every game, not just league, every game. Players who retire from injuries and barring trauma, 99% of the time it's at the point when they decide that the career is not worth me dealing with this. It's not the injury itself that says, oh, you can no longer play the game.
So having said all of that, should Faker retire?
So I know I wish I could give you a yes or no. If it's because of mental burnout, if it's because he's decided like I just can't do this grind anymore, yeah, he should absolutely retire. If it's from a selfish fan perspective, I don't want him to retire like this. I want him to finish the year out, and I want him to like go to Worlds and have a really strong showing, maybe win another Worlds. If he wins Worlds, he should retire regardless, I think. I think that's when you just you walk off on top. You know, like you've just had the most brutal stretch of years, 3 years, basically any professional player could have, and you've won multiple times, you've won different events. Like it's at that point, just hang it up, walk away on top. What I don't want to see is if he doesn't retire and next year he comes out and he's just not the same, and he goes through this again, where we see another video of him slamming his desk or slamming, like hitting his head again or something. Like, I don't want to see him go that route of like falling into, man, I remember when he was so good. This sucks watching him now. Like I don't want him to get to that point. I want him to go out like a legend. But if he's truly burnt out, if he really is at a mental state where he just cannot play the game, yeah, I obviously want him to retire right now. But if it's more just, hey, he was frustrated, and actually, it's so funny because literally yesterday, I completely choked the game of Valorant. I was playing like ass. I was like 0-14 at one point, and I was like, I slammed my head like 3 times in my hand. I was like, I'm so dog at this game. I suck. I'm gonna uninstall. And then like that was that night. And then a few hours later, I see the whole Faker thing. And so I was talking to my girlfriend about it today, and she's like, "You're just like that." So I get that part of it. I don't think he should retire if he was just frustrated by one game and he's like, or one series. He's like, you know what? I just played like ass. I just hate myself right now, and I never want to play like that again. I get that frustration. As if it's indicative of a deeper, bigger issue, then yeah, I don't think it's something to mess with. But he should absolutely not retire if he was just like, hey, I had a really bad day. If he just comes out and he says, you know what, I know it looks really bad. I don't usually do this. I was so upset by how I played that night. That's all it was. No, I think it's fine. That's he's just he's a hyper competitor, and he's lost against Chovy how many times in a row now? Like it's frustrating.
I will. That part I definitely agree with. I think even if Faker wins World, I don't want him to retire. I think Faker retiring would be a mistake. I wouldn't be against him taking like a split off. But retiring, when we last split, a lot of people forget, last split before MSI, he looked like, the top 2 mid laner in the world. He was playing out of his mind. Like the whole reason they were so close to beating Gen G was because Faker on his champions was playing out of his mind. The year before, during summer, he could only play like 3 or 4 champions. And that's why Gen G just kept beating him. KT decided not to ban his champions, and that's how he made it to finals. And when his champions were banned, he wasn't playing well. And then he came back.
Yeah. As they say, he still has it. I was at Worlds 2022, the semifinals against JDG and Atlanta. I went to that. It was the best League of Legends I've ever seen in my life, quality-wise. Like, and Faker was playing out of his mind, pulling out the Rise, game 4, just like stunting on people. It was incredible, right?
Oh, against JDG, yeah.
Yeah. But then when he lost to DRX, he just didn't have a good performance. His team played well enough; they should have honestly won, but he didn't have a great performance. He didn't show up. So then the next year, when they ended up winning last year, it was like Faker was Faker. It was like he was carrying that whole game basically from mid lane. And so you can definitely see he's got it, right? He has the peak. He can clearly still be a top 3 mid laner in the world. I don't doubt his abilities. You're saying you want him to stay because you want to see how long he can keep doing that, or
no? I think that he needs to figure out some healthy way of recovering, because I think if you just look at sort of his level right now, I would say he's at a peak level. It's just maybe burnout, maybe some sort of stress, maybe something's happening in his personal life that we don't know about. That stuff happens,
Sure.
And so, if you're able to fix that, you will have a peak level Faker. If I asked this question last year, I would have said yes, he should retire. But the fact that in spring he showed such impressive play to the point where I was like, man, this is Faker of the old. How is he so consistent? Like, how is he back at this level? Because we saw his level of 2023, and again, he wasn't like hard carrying. And then in spring, he's playing like a hard carry. In summer, he's not doing that, but you already know he can be back there with just a couple changes.
I do wonder if that break that he took when he was injured, like that really reset him a lot and got him ready for Worlds. I think it's kind of indicative that you can't just keep going at the pace that they're going continuously. It's just not possible. They don't even like the Korean work ethic, the way that they're, especially T1, the way they're doing it with all of these smaller events plugged in between. It's not sustainable because they just grind way too much. There's no peaking. They're at a constant peak almost every 2 months, which means that there's no mental recovery, there's no physical recovery. They never take a break from the game. They're going from patch to patch to patch. It's like that's exhausting. I don't know how they're actually managing to do that with the players. I mean, the younger guys, I guess it's, they've only been doing this for a few years, so they're probably thinking this is the norm. But for someone like Faker, like it's got to get to the point where, especially because you won everything, like how hard is it to stay motivated to continue being the best at that point?
I wish I was able to interview Faker during MSI, but everyone was requesting Faker, so he was hard to land. But it is a question of like what drives you to play, because we've heard what Kobe said, we've heard what Shaq said, and they have very different answers, and you can tell from their level of play. They had very different like motivations, and there's the reason it's called the Mamba mentality. Michael Jordan as well. We don't have the same level of documentation, but we still know, like you were saying earlier, how much he hated losing. And it wasn't just about winning. It was like, I don't want to lose.
And actually, it's interesting you bring those two up, because like Kobe and Michael Jordan, who are probably the two that I consider the most like dead center, ruthless, like one-dimensional approach to winning, of like never giving up. But they're also very different, right? Kobe was all about, I want to show I'm the best and I know I'm the best. Michael Jordan was proving everyone wrong, because he was like that Tom Brady, where initially they didn't think he was going to be a superstar in college, and then he's like, and they're getting drafted, and then he became who he was. But it was like he said that when he first started playing basketball as a kid, he was not seen as like good. He had to go practice. It was all practice. And like Kobe's just relentless work ethic. That guy was actually, there's something like wrong with him. Like there was, like he straight up had an issue, because he would win an NBA finals. And I read, if you've ever read Relentless, Tim Grover.
No, I haven't read it. Yeah.
But basically it's the athletic trainer who worked with both Kobe, Michael Jordan, Dwayne Wade. And he was talking about how Kobe would win an NBA finals, call him on his phone that night instead of celebrating, be like, I missed 3 shots I should have made. Meet me in the gym in like 2 hours. And he would go and take the same shot for like 100, just until he nailed it. Like the guy was unbelievably focused and just never ever took his eyes off what he wanted. But I don't know, because all the interviews with Faker, everything I've seen media-wise of Faker, he just seems kind of quiet and wants to be good at what he does. It doesn't seem like there's this outward personality effect of like, he doesn't talk a lot of trash. He doesn't like, boast about very much at all. He just states what he thinks is true, which is, I think I can win. Like,
yeah, I'd love to be able to get like a deeper dive into his brain and figure out why are you continuously playing when you could just retire and be the greatest player ever, when you could just retire and be a coach, or even take an offer from China and go play on a team, and it'll probably be a really good team and you'll probably be paid a lot. It's something that what drives Faker? I think that if we answer that question, we can kind of definitively say, should Faker retire? But I think as of right now, I think that retiring would be a mistake on his end.
Makes sense. Yeah. And it's actually interesting. He's sort of also has that mystique about him, because specifically nobody really knows that much about him, right? Like the whole storyline between the DRX T1 final was like, DRX Deft, like his whole story coming up. He was in Faker's shadow. He's like trying to get there. But we never really hear about like Faker being who he is. He's always just been the king, the unkillable Demon King. He came onto the scene, was just immediately this like monster. But there's not even a lot of interviews out there where he really dives into his motivations or anything about himself. It's just always talking about the game. Like, oh, like they were very strong, and I thought we had a good team this year, and it's like always very like just what you would expect a champion to talk about the game. But it was very little about him as a person. I actually don't know that much about him and his background and like how he came up and all that before basically becoming who he is now as a legend. But I talked to Impact about him. I used to ask Impact because he played with him obviously in the first year that SKT won, and he said Faker's he just said he's an interesting person. He's quiet. He's like he doesn't really give you very much in terms of like he's funny. He said he's funny, but he's not like outward like a huge personality. Like some players you see like JoJo, right? He's just a big personality.
Yeah.
And I don't think we really get that from Faker. It's just kind of like he's just the GOAT of the game.
Next topic. I know you've already kind of threw your vote out for Team Liquid, but who's going to win between Team Liquid and Cloud9? And since I already know you're taking Team Liquid, I'll take Cloud.
Okay, you say Cloud9? All right.
Yeah, I think Cloud9's going to win. And
okay, well, tell me why.
Let me throw you a couple statistics. C9 have the highest gold percentage rating, have the highest first blood percentage, have the highest first tower percentage, highest first to 3 tower, Herald control, grub percentage, first Drake, Baron control, and highest gold difference at 15 in the league. They also have fewer combined kills per minute than Team Liquid, which means they're dying less and they're just getting more kills and being cleaner. And so basically have less fiestas than Team Liquid. And this is, courtesy of Ali Hassanain on Twitter.
Yeah,
He's sort of,
I argued with her on the original tweet, and then she showed all the stats I liked. I was like, actually, yeah, good points. Like, I didn't even look at the stats. I was going off like just the eyeball test of what I was watching. But yeah.
Yeah, and then when a lot of people talk about, strength of schedule, Cloud9 have played Shopify, so have Team Liquid. Cloud9 have played 100 Thieves, so have TL.
Mm-hmm.
They've both played Immortals. They've both played Dignitas. The only difference is that Cloud9 played NRG and Team Liquid played FlyQuest in the first game of the split. So there's one game difference. So it's not even a strength of schedule anymore. It's just like, yeah, TL happened to play one different team.
Debatable because strength of schedule, not just the same team, but at what point did you play the team, right? Like some teams have been getting better, so playing them later is sort of different than playing them really similar. Like the same argument could apply that you're like, oh, well, you could diminish the FlyQuest game as well. It's very early, right? FlyQuest it was beginning of the season. The teams in the beginning of the season are never as strong as they are later, ideally.
And Quad didn't look half as good as he does now, yeah.
Right. So you can argue that, but then you can also say the same thing about playing Shopify week 1 versus Shopify later, right? Like, I think Shopify week 1 was just like, what is going on? And
yeah, both teams played a weak Shopify, so I think both teams.
Let's just take strength. I think the point is valid though. Let's take strength of schedule off the table. It's essentially even. Mm-hmm. And their stats look better. I think the reason I'm going to say TL, and it's not by much, right? If we're talking odds, I'd say 60-40. It's not like it's 80%. I'm going to say TL is going to win. I think it's going to be very close. I'm guessing 2-1. But I think TL wins mainly because they have played very, very good competition more recently. They went to EWC. They played very well against T1. They honestly should have taken 2 games off of them. They've been playing consistently well since MSI. I think APA's champ pool is always going to cause problems in draft, no matter what. Like you have to respect it, and it just adds a variability factor that C9 has to account for that they just have never historically really been able to do with APA. I don't think any teams have ever effectively been able to do anything about it, right? Like giving him Ziggs or giving May Souls, like you don't want to give him that, but he can also play other champs. Like he's been very good on other champions too. He's fine playing someone else. It creates issues for them. And if we're going to go really deep dive, historically, who is C9's coach now?
Reapered.
Right. Historically, Reapered has struggled a lot against TL for whatever reason. Like he outthinks. I've seen this when I was working with them back in like 2018, 2019, 2020. Reaper kind of outthinks himself going against TL for whatever reason. Like whenever he goes against really good teams, sometimes he sort of outdrafts himself, and it doesn't have to be as complex as that, right? So you'll see sometimes where he'll pull a draft out like the Nidalee Renekton and stuff, and it's like we didn't have to do this. We could have gone. He's been playing a lot of Nidalee lately too. They'll sometimes just go with a direction that's a little like almost thinking 3 steps ahead when they didn't even have to go. They could have just played what was meta. So I think there's a little bit of a mental issue with TL specifically that I've seen in the past. Now, obviously, it's a different team, right? TL of the past was a very, very different, I guess, roster and everything. But there's some returning players. You got Impact, you got Core JJ. They know C9 very well, especially Impact, right? He played with the org. He's played for Reaper. He knows inside out how they want to think. And one of the things that I've always really respected about Impact, having worked with him at EG, is that he knows how to pull that stuff out in meetings and be like, I know this player, I know what their response is going to be if we do this, and he will set that scenario up. He's like, they're going to see you vanish, Core JJ, and this was when he was playing with EG. So it was, oh, Vulcan, if you vanish off the screen, this guy's going to come down. He's always going to try to catch you, thinking you're roaming. So if you just disappear and you come back, like, there's so many ways that he sets up scenarios based on how knowing the people. He will also be really active and probably creating draft issues for C9 because they'll have pocket picks that he's aware of playing. The best example of that was when they played against, it was Ornn meta and nobody had a counter for Ornn. So they were playing against TL, right? It was EG versus TL. Nobody had a counter for Ornn except Impact is like, in game 3, I'm going to pull out Mordekaiser. And they're like, what? He's like, I played it before. I know how to play. I know how to win this. Nobody's even seen this matchup in like a year. So yeah, he pulls it out. They smash, he smashes the lane or whatever. So I think there's a lot of intangibles that are going to be really hard draft wise for C9 to deal with. I also think that as a whole, I just trust if there is a fiesta, right? I don't think both teams are going to have a very clean game against each other. I think it's going to kind of turn into a bit of a brawl. In a situation like that, I kind of trust TL's decision making a little bit more right now. I think C9's gotten much better since spring. I think they're showing improvement consistently every week as well with their macro, with their decision making. They're obviously, their laning has always been good. Thanatos is going to continue improving. I do think that there's still too fresh of a roster with Thanatos to fully shock on. Also, his English, right? Like, how effective is he going to be at calling compared to Fudge, who obviously was much more well-versed with the team? In a situation where there's a lot of chaos going on, I usually end up banking on the team that's been together a little bit longer in order to make the right call and actually act on it together. So I think it'll be close, but I think TL has an advantage just in terms of being together longer, having a little bit more exposure and veteran status when it comes to being in different situations as a whole right now. And they're going to probably respond to the mess, in my opinion, a little bit better than C9 will.
All respect to Impact, he is. It's funny that you went into all this detail about Impact because our next topic is going to be explicitly about Impact. But I will give Impact his props. I don't think Thanatos is going to get a 30 to 40 CS lead against Impact like he did with other top laners. That's not going to happen. But I think what your arguments going against each other make no sense. You're saying that it's going to be a fiesta, but then Team Liquid are going to get out on top. Team Liquid have been the most controlled team. They have better setups than everyone else. And when things turn to fiesta, they lose. You know why? Because it's very difficult for them to win when you're down gold. When you're laning against Palafox versus when you're laning against Jojopyun, those are two very different, mid laners. Jojopyun is playing way better than he was before, and he was, in my opinion, robbed of MVP last split. You have Berserker, who's playing a lot better, and he's better in team fights than Yeon. It's just an objective truth. This is his meta. You have Vulcan, who was playing way better than last split. Vulcan last split looked like he was an NPC, and he got called out by Bwipo that he's just an NPC. This split, he's back in the groove. And so you don't have an advantage bottom lane. You don't have the advantage mid lane because Jojopyun's going to play whatever into whatever, and he's going to win that matchup because it's Jojopyun. And so when you get into these team fights, these skirmishes, these fiestas, when you're down in gold and not up in gold 3,000-4,000 because the other team doesn't know how to set up vision properly, you don't need that. You don't need the communication from Thanatos. You just need him to be even against Impact because, again, you can try pushing your lead. You're going to be even against Impact. What, you're going to get like a 10 CS lead? Like, who cares? Right? You're going to have these gold leads. You're going to have better positioning because you have more gold. And Team Liquid aren't going to get away with all the stuff that they have been getting away with. A reason they played very well against T1 was, again, their mid laner, T1, Faker, wasn't playing that well. If Faker was playing well, Team Liquid had no business in any of those games. But the fact that they found a point where they could actually have control, they're not going to find that against Cloud9. Cloud9 are the best laning team. And when you have more gold, it makes it easier for you to set up and win these fiestas. And so I see no way where Team Liquid can actively win these fiestas if it does turn into fiesta. If it's a controlled game where you have to macro and you have to side lane and things like that, I can agree with you. Team Liquid do have an avenue there. But when it comes to team fighting, when it comes to like these skirmishes, 2v2, 3v3, um, Blabber is playing the Nidalee. What is Umpty playing? He can't play any of these AP champions. And people pointed
Yeah.
out, and Spawn was like, yeah, you know, right now these champions are working for us. We're gonna play the Sejuani. We're gonna continue playing these like Vi and Wukong and stuff, or not Wukong, but Jax and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Again, that's not gonna work in a team that has a 2,000 gold lead to 15 minutes. You're not gonna be
Yeah.
able to out team fight them just because you have better setups when you're down gold.
I mean, I kind of disagree with that because if you are down gold, you're not going to force the fight, right? Team Liquid is very good at understanding the situation, right? So if they're down gold against T1 or whatever, they weren't really. They had 2 games where they were up on gold, but if you're down gold, they will set it up so that they can catch waves out on the sides. They're not going to try to force fight. Again, the champ pool APA is playing is not going to be looking for that, right? You're playing very safe farming champions. You're trying to scale. You're trying to get ahead. You're trying to make macro work for you. Get setups on objectives. They're very good at trading very quickly. And I think that's actually the interesting thing about this matchup too, is we've seen these are the 2 best teams at actually just trading objectives. They're not sitting around watching people take a drag. They will just go and take something else. They'll say, oh, hey, we don't have setup. We're not going to fight this. We'll go somewhere else.
Absolutely.
So reactively, they've been playing a lot better around tempo and all that stuff. TL, though, I think has the potential. I know the stats support C9 having a really strong early game. Again, that's stats against teams that are not as good. Both teams have a very good early game. When it comes down to it, though, we have seen peaks from TL early where they can take a 3,000, 4,000 gold lead against T1. They can set it up. They can read what C9 is going to want to do. A lot of the Nidalee stuff I don't think is just going to work that well against a team that's actually set up right, because Nidalee requires setup. You can't just take Nidalee and just start running at people, right? If they have vision, you're kind of just screwed on your gank. So I feel like there's a lot of laning that could be debatable. I do think Jojo Pyun is going to probably at least win lane by a bit, if not dominate lane. But again, if Impact, or I mean, if APA is playing a champ where he doesn't necessarily have to win lane, he just has to basically farm and stay alive and absorb pressure. He's been very good at that. Impact versus Thanatos could be a coin flip. I think Thanatos is very good. He's still technically a rookie, and there's things that are probably abusable about him. We haven't seen huge champ pool depth yet, but like, you know, if they give him his a couple of comfort picks, he's going to be totally fine. Berserker is playing a lot better. If they give him Zeri, I think we're going to have problems. Like, there's just, you cannot give him that champion. It doesn't matter right now with Zeri being in the meta. It doesn't matter like what the matchup even is. You cannot give him that champion. So it'll be close. I definitely think momentum wise, whatever team gets ahead early is going to have obviously a much smoother route to win. If TL gets ahead early, it's going to be really rough, I think, for C9, because they're going to get choked out and all that. And then that's when you see the fiesta from C9. When they get down, they will start throwing things. They will start trying to create fist fights in River. They'll start trying to just take these small, like, this is a historic thing with C9. They like to take fights when they're down in order to force an advantage somewhere. TL generally doesn't like to do that. They like to look for where they have an advantage and pressure it harder. So I definitely think it'll be an interesting thing to see how the early game goes. Jojo also technically, I think he is one of the better first solo blood kill laners in the league. He almost always recognizes when he has kill potential, and he'll call it out. So it's sort of depend on APA, because I think APA is pretty good at surviving that, but APA doesn't have very good first blood all in unless someone just egos him and dives him under turret or something a lot of times. But like, he doesn't tend to just find that angle. So I definitely see if there's an early lead, it's probably going to be Blabber playing around mid lane, Blabber playing around bot lane. I think, again, it really comes down to, okay, if we're winning in mid lane, I think Blabber is a less, I don't want to say less conceded. This goes back to your argument. I don't know if Blabber's been the best jungler in the league.
He's been better than Umpty. Umpty has been invisible. He's been playing tanks when everyone else is. He's not playing the meta. He can't even play these champions.
Yeah. That's the thing is, like, yeah, he can definitely play the AP, carry type junglers. I'm wondering if TL also historically has pulled out some weird picks against C9 before, if it is coming down to that. If they're going to pull something else out too. I mean, I don't understand. Personally, this is not even related to Umpty specifically. I don't understand how a pro jungler can't learn Karthus, or like can't learn Brand, right? Like just like, power farm, walk up, press, QE and stuff like, or EQ. Like I don't know. I just I can't foresee how, if you really, really need to learn, I don't think you can learn Nidalee in a week, but I think you can easily learn some of these powerful clearing junglers, carry junglers in a week if you just sit there and play 20, 30 games.
Not if you're Umti. If you look at his playstyle, he's a heavy invading jungler, and so he needs these junglers that like don't need to full clear. Right, that's his whole thing. Is that I'm not going to full clear.
Well,
I'm going to find where my lanes are pushing, where my lanes are winning, and invade with the help of impact, with the help of APA. But when you can't do that, because once you invade, guess what? It's a Zyra, and she's already done with her clear, sitting bot bush for 30 seconds, waiting for crap to spawn.
Right. I mean, that's what I mean, though. It's like I just this goes to a whole other discussion about playstyle, right? Like, what is playstyle? There's no playstyle. There's optimal for whatever you've picked, and then there's suboptimal. So I just don't understand how anyone at a challenger pro level could not learn how to do that, right? Like, you can learn to play early game champs, but you could also learn how to play late game champs. It may not fit your desired playstyle. You don't like playing them, but I just can't understand how a pro coaching staff couldn't eventually get a player to just at least be confident on a variety of champs like that. That's always been a league thing, They'll be like, oh, this player can't play this champion. And I see it. There's certain things where someone like Blabber, who's played a ton of Nidalee and used to be kind of a Nidalee one trick, he will do things on that champion that a lot of players can't or don't know how to do. So there's that. But for a champ like Brand, there's not a lot of mechanics. There's the Zyra. There's not a lot you need to know. You kind of just need to know the basics of how the champ works. And then certainly a coach should tell you, like, this is how long this takes to do this clear. And you just practice. Like, I don't know. It's weird to think of the inability to like play a champion at that level.
I don't think I don't think it's necessarily that he can't play the champion. I think the team can't function that way. If you look at what 100 Thieves are struggling with, they can't put River on Brand and Zyra and have Ayla be the engage, because the team doesn't function that way. River needs to be the engage. And so when you switch that out, I think Team Liquid might have a situation where the rookies need these, like, the two carries can't play efficiently when they have a third carry and not a tank or some sort of frontline or a bruiser that can create space. And so they're not able to team fight as well. And so my guess would be, can Umti play a Brand game in solo queue? Absolutely. Can he play it within the confines of the 4 players he's playing around and the synergy that they have? Probably not.
Yeah, that's true. But then another philosophical concept I've stressed a lot I've always been kind of frustrated by too, is teams who, when they identify what they're good at, they move away from it, especially in summer. They move away from it because, like, oh, we have to learn how to play this other early game stuff. We also have to learn how to do this. And it's like, if you know you are a team that heavily emphasizes getting early game leads, heavily emphasizes playing macro, heavily emphasizes just setting objectives and playing, you should just double down on it. You draft around that. You don't draft a Nidalee into Blabber. You don't draft like Brand, right? Like, you start playing, take the Sejuani, take the Maokai, whatever, and then you just play around it. If everyone is on board with that and you set up for it, there's not much he can do. Because if Blabber picks Nidalee and let's say Umti goes Sej or goes Maokai, and well, not Sej, I'd say let's go Maokai, and you want to basically set up a lane to succeed, you just basically don't let Blabber get 3 kills in the first 10 minutes. And he's gonna have a really hard time later, because that's sort of what happens every time they pick Nidalee. It's like, okay, well, he just got a triple kill, and like, what is going on? Why are you guys even fighting here? I don't think the discipline issue with TL is going to be as evident as some of these other teams, and they've been able to honestly take advantage of it. If there is an early lead, I think TL is pretty good about mitigating that compared to some of the other teams, which might even, like you said, or the TP back into a lane and die again. Like, stuff like that just doesn't happen. So if it drags out, and you get to mid to late, and now C9 doesn't have a lot of these early game advantages, you can also argue that C9's win rate right now is because they have such a massive gold disparity at 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It's pretty easy to close games out when you have a 10K gold lead. Like, you're just like,
not if
anything works. No.
You keep doing that over and over and still
for the good teams. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty easy, like, I just, it's hard to predict what's going to happen, because this is the first, like, this is what I hate about this being a single round robin, is that we haven't seen a lot of matchups like this where it's 2 teams that are fairly evenly matched meeting when they're peaking at the same time. That hasn't really happened very much, the way the schedule is right now. So I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. I think, TL's been tested a little bit more, so I would probably give them the nod in terms of experience there. But at the same time, C9 is also one of the teams that I find they thrive when they're confident, and they're pretty confident right now. So I can definitely see that. There's also sometimes an overconfidence issue. If they come into this game thinking we are the best team, we're going to stomp these guys, and they lose game one, a lot of times that starts to throw a wrench in the gears. So I think similar to the game itself, if TL gets an early lead, if TL wins game one, it's going to be really hard for C9. But if C9 wins game one, I think TL has enough in the tank. They'll probably be able to answer. It'll be interesting to see, though. Again, I'm leaning 60-40 TL, mainly just because I have a lot of faith in them right now. Defending champs, they've been, to MSI, EWC, made really good runs. They've played against all sorts of international competition. I'm not worried about their mental fortitude. And in a best of series, especially against a good team, I think that really matters a lot.
I think probably your best argument would be, Thanatos is playing so well, lane swap on him. Let's see what you do.
Yeah,
it's like,
and
yeah, what is
TL
Cloud9 gonna
loves
do?
that right now.
Yeah.
They're very confident with it. They're very comfortable with it. We haven't seen C9 really have to deal with that since last split. So I'm also surprised. I haven't been following because I haven't been playing as much League lately, but I haven't been following the meta as much. But lane swaps are so prevalent and all of a sudden just stopped happening. I know they nerfed it a little bit, but TL was able to pull it off at EWC and it was still fine. So I don't. It's kind of interesting that I've always noticed about the pro scene. Coaches will see something like that and be like, "Oh, it's nerfed. We can't do this anymore," and they just drop it. And it's like sometimes it's only like 10% worse. It's not necessarily bad.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. You've obviously seen more behind the scenes in the scrims and whatnot, and like what happens when a player can't play a champion within a team, or when a strategy they just don't want to use it anymore. Um, it is very intriguing, like when what you were talking about, like the philosophical points behind that. Like, why is it that you can't integrate? Why is it that when you start doing something very well, you move away from it? The first time I saw something like that happen was moving from 2016 TSM, who like heavily indexed on just early game, and they were winning early games against Gen G and
Yeah.
Samsung Galaxy, who made it to the finals that year, and RNG, who were probably the third best team in the world at that point. Like TSM was probably a top 4 team in the world at that point.
Yeah.
They didn't make
Yeah.
it out of groups because they had literally number 2 and 3 in their group. But again, they were like very close against those two teams. And so then in 2017, they're like, hey, we're going to play a better late game comp because in early game, we just can't blow teams out. And they moved away from their strength. And I feel like ever since then, teams are like, oh, we can play Galio mid really well now. So let's not use it because we want to be versatile. And then you look at the LPL, and it's like Doinby is playing Nautilus mid and not worried about people banning him because then he's going to play Pike mid or he's going to play whatever. It doesn't matter what he's going to play. And they just like hyper index on these specific niche strategies and saying like, hey, my strategy might not be optimal, but I'm going to play it better than you so that we're not computers. If we were computers, I'd lose, but you're human, so I'm going to beat you.
I think this is sort of a league issue because of the drafts, champ pools, all that stuff. I think a trend I've seen in a lot of coaches in LCS, and it's interesting because it's both foreign coaches, like coming from Korea, and domestic coaches. They all have this mentality that when you go to Worlds, you need to learn all these different play styles. You need to learn how to play early. You need to have versatility. You need to be good at all this stuff in order to match the Asian teams. And I think it's probably an Asian mentality from the Korean teams that infiltrated here from their coaching staff. And then so a lot of LCS orgs and staff also pick that up. But I've always thought it was a bit of a mistake because you're not going to get as good as that play style. Like, let's say we're going to play very controlled macro like Genji, just farm lane, play perfectly, and then we'll win the game through attrition. You can't learn that in a month if you haven't been doing that all split. And so a lot of times teams switch away from this very, very aggressive early game style that they've mastered and got them to a finals and all that to try to learn another play style in order to be versatile. But what it ends up doing is it detracts from their ability to actually play the original playstyle as well, because they now spent time practicing this other way and they're playing other champs, and it becomes sort of a feeling of you don't really have the intuitive feel that you would have, like the times you don't really think about a decision, you're just like, oh, this is the right thing to do. That kind of stuff goes away as soon as you start having to overthink a decision because you're like, oh, we're supposed to be playing slow here, we're supposed to do this. I've seen that a lot, and that's why a lot of NA teams that we were very hyped on go to Worlds, and then they end up choking in groups because they're like trying all these different things. They're trying different comps. They're trying new champs, and they're like, oh, the meta shifted and all this stuff. And you're like, you kind of just went away from what made you so good to even get here in the first place. You don't see it in Valorant. You don't see it in other games. So, for example, watching champs right now, Valorant, you have last night Lev, best team in North America, arguably one of the top 2 teams in the world, played against Talon, who is 3rd or 4th in China or in Pacifics. Nobody expected them to win. They took them to almost 3 maps. They almost won both maps pretty early on. It was very, very close, actually. And the way they did it was by just throwing these comps and these playstyles that Lev was not prepared for. Like, they'd never seen someone play like these 2 agents on this map like that. And it was super aggressive. And even the casters and the analysts were like, this doesn't really make sense, but okay. But it's what Talon wants to play. Like, they're used to playing like this. So they just like, you know what? If we're going to be an aggressive, hyper aggressive, not meta team that we played this comp before and practice all that, we're just going to punch you in the face as hard as we can and see if you can take it. Like, you're gonna actually surprise a lot of teams with that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I think we're kind of getting off topic, but I don't like the mentality that a lot of coaches have when they start going international. They start trying to switch the emphasis. I think TL should realistically try to force C9 into positions where they have to play to TL's ideal win cons. You're going to try to force a late game. You're going to try to force them to have to like play objectives on you. You don't want to let them snowball a lane. Like, you're going to try to pick a comp that basically doesn't enable Blabber to get anyone going and force them to have to basically outthink you mid-game. And I think they're going to have a hard time if they have to do that, because the shot calling on C9 is sometimes a little scattered too. Like, it's when things aren't going like clear direction, like when it's not an obvious coached issue, like, oh, when in this situation, this is what we should be doing. I think they struggle a little bit. There's a little bit of a shot call, like, okay, well, what do we do now? Whereas I think TL is actually very comfortable with that. They have 2 very veteran players who are used to doing that all the time. So I think the biggest win con for TL is that they have to force C9 to play a macro game against them, and they have to maintain a neutral game state in the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes. That's about it, I think.
That is
and
the
then
key,
after that,
to success for Team Liquid. Just keep it neutral, and then when side laning happens, like APA's side lane is much better than anybody else. I think the top 2 teams, or not the top 2 teams, but Team Liquid and FlyQuest have the best side laning, and Cloud9 don't have to side lane because they're always winning. So we've never really seen it, but I doubt that they can.
So that would be my argument for C9's win con. It's like, if C9's able to get some of these leads that they've been able to generate, it's going to be tough, right? Like, it doesn't matter who you are. If you have a 5k gold lead 10 minutes, it's so hard to play. Or if you have a 5k gold deficit, I should say.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't even matter what your decisions are at that point. You're just trying to minimize the damage. Like,
which makes it even more amazing. The Fnatic lost 3 times that way. That's
dude, I made a tweet about that too. Watching LEC playoffs, it feels like I don't know how Europe. I don't know how G2 is as good as they are when this is the competition they have every year. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's like I don't know, if you took a pro LCS team, put them in collegiate for 2 years, and then you put them in internationals, how do you think they're going to perform? It's crazy that G2 is still like so good, because like these teams are just throwing for them. Like, it's crazy. I have never seen breakdowns like that where you're playing Ezreal. You should never ever be caught. No offense to Sven, but like, you should never.
Hey, Sven did it once. This guy without a lead. Okay.
That's stuck in his head
twice.
so
I guess
bad.
the dragon like, again, trying to kill a Blanc and then just getting one shot. Yeah, but Noah's was definitely more egregious.
It was egregious, man. He eat into their jungle. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that was. All right,
Anyway.
I got a couple more topics for you.
Yeah.
This one you can go ahead. Actually, I'll go ahead because I've talked about this publicly before. Immortals have been an absolute negative to the LCS since they're re-entering in 2020. They have finished bottom 2 in the last 10 splits. They've only made playoffs once. They've been bottom 2 every single time, or maybe sometimes they're tied for like the 7th or 9th back when we had 10 teams. In terms of sponsors, they are actively burning bridges with people. They make a sponsor with some sort of organization, whether it's Razer or Progressive or whatever it is, and they look back at the videos and they're like, I could have gotten my niece to make a video and it would have gotten more than 100 views on YouTube, and yet you have this whole production team. We're giving you all this money. Like, everything about it just makes no sense. They are absolute negative in terms of the financial model. There are other sports backed industries that are probably looking at this team and being like, they have all this money and look at what they're doing with the team. They're absolutely throwing stuff. They're talking to other sponsors like, we were in esports for a couple of years with this one team who was supposed to be really good. And then, they absolutely burned us and we got zero return. So just stay away from esports. They are actively making League of Legends esports. They are a bad representative, and the LCS should have removed Immortals back in 2022. I don't know why they kept them for as long as they did.
What's the debate here?
Okay, I guess you agree. All right, maybe.
Okay. So, like I said, I like to play devil's advocate. I don't think Immortals is a bad organization in terms of the potential they have. I think their direction has been way too chaotic, and they don't have a clear focus. If Immortals wants to succeed, they need to stop considering themselves a competitive esports team in the league. They need to look at themselves as a brand. What they should be doing, and they did this successfully for a little bit, is doing more community events. They held tournaments. They held scouting combines. They did all this stuff on their own that was actually really good and very well received in their local area. They're one of the few LCS orgs that has a regional base. They actually have like the Midwest or whatever. Like, there are a lot of people there who know who Immortals are because of the small events they do there for, game changers for LCS. Like, they do League or your Valorant centric events for the community. That's what they should pivot to. They should continue competing in the LCS, but they should focus their efforts and their media and all that stuff around actually building their community. Not, hey, we want to be the best team in the LCS. Every time the Immortals puts a video out like, oh, we're going to win this year, watch. And you're like, come on, man. You haven't placed in the single digits until the league went to single digits. Like come on. It's not. Next year they're gonna be like, oh, if they stay in the league, like, oh, we were top 6 this year. Like, no, this is not how you climb. You need to understand where your strengths and weaknesses are, right? And I think there are teams that really understand that, and there are teams that don't. If I'm trying to think of a good example, but like, there are teams that I honestly like 100 Thieves, I think, does a better job of branding themselves as a lifestyle brand and as a clothing brand and as a community than they do a competitive esports team. Of course, they love when they win. Of course, they highlight it like, oh, we're doing great. We've won championships. All this stuff. I don't think a lot of their branding is like, we are the best team in the league. Like, it's not like TL. TL will always have in their videos multiple trophies. C9, they'll always have, look at this trophy. Like, you can't do that when you're 100 Thieves. So their branding is very smart, and it's very much about, hey, we are a lifestyle brand. We sell the best merch. We're hype. Look at our content creators. They're super cool. We have a rapper coming in on our next video. Like, they do that kind of stuff. So Immortals needs to think, okay, well, if we don't have that kind of just like throwaway money. We don't have the championships. What do we have? Well, we have the one thing that had a modicum of success that we did was when we did community events and just build a fan base that way. And you could be the Buffalo Bills of the LCS for a long time, where now they're actually kind of good. But you bring your fans, you crowd a stadium, there's a whole Immortal section that just wants to see them play. You're probably going to lose, but it doesn't matter. You find likable players. Their LCS team should 100% be the best content creators that they can find that can play at that level. They should be finding people who are entertaining. They should be finding people that have personality. You're not going to keep scraping Academy or NACL every year to kind of put a roster together and then throw it against freaking C9TL and then hope to do something. Like, it's unless you have an organization in place that is able to develop these players into that.
Let me get into that, because you just oh man, I'm so frustrated, because what happened was every single time Immortals try to do that, they bring in staff, they just fire them. whoever is the Immortals management, like above their GM, needs to just retire. He needs to be held responsible because they brought in Sharks, who's someone who's known to work well with rookies. He brought in some Korean, prospects that honestly, Castle, at the very least, Castle's looking great. Even in his losses, people are pointing to Castle and be like, he last split, maybe he was the third best top laner. Who knows? It was a 2-year project. Like Sharks went out and said, look, this IMT is a 2-year project. The first year, we're trying to figure this stuff out. The second year, we're going to make a push for Worlds, right? Don't judge us based on the split. And what happens? They fire him after 1 split, after telling him that what you're doing is good. He had a performance review after the split ended. And what did they say? They said, you're doing great. And then a week later, they fired him. And Immortals at that time were still scrimming. They were so good in scrims that playoff teams like Team Liquid were actually scrimming Immortals despite not making playoffs. That's the type of culture that he was putting. And then you kick him and then you say, hey, we still have the same mindset. And they only say this privately, by the way. They refused to make a public statement because we're going to make it after MSI. We don't want to distract people. Didn't say a thing because people forgot about it. Their management. And in terms of marketing, they decided, hey, we are the Great Lakes. I was born in Michigan. I go back there. I used to go back there a lot, but not anymore because my dad doesn't live there anymore. Mm-hmm. But I'm embarrassed that they are part of Michigan. The fact that they have 2 separate orgs. They have the marketing side, and they have people who actually care and are deeply passionate about growing stuff. And those people, sometimes they do great things like these scouting combines and whatnot. But when it comes to their marketing agency, they need to be a brand. And all they've ever done is, hey, corporate America back in 2002 used to do this. So we're going to say, hey, sports teams used to be like the Washington, they're not the Redskins anymore. What are they? The Commanders.
Commanders, yeah.
Yeah, or the Baltimore Ravens or whatnot. We're just going to do that. We're going to be the Great Lakes Immortals. And they just keep doing all these things that aren't necessarily the way esports are or the way just sports are in 2024. Look at some sports teams and their TikToks. Dude, why do they have a TikTok if they have these huge fan bases? Because that's where the world's attention is on. And they don't understand that. I don't know if they have a marketing CMO, but if they do, he needs to be fired. Because he's robbing them, honestly, with their money.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with all of that. That's why I'm saying, they need to figure out what it is that the direction should be. And yeah, it's if you want to have a competitive team and you want to do it on a budget, you build a system. And you funnel players into it, and you weed out the ones who don't make it, and the rest of them create that environment, that culture that the others feed into. The team comparable to that is probably that was the best at doing this, in my opinion, was EG. EG across LCS and VCT was able to put together budget rosters of players nobody believed in, put them through a system, found coaching staff that enabled that, and actually was very, very competitive. They won a freaking world championship in Valorant with a player that came up through their academy scouting system that nobody knew, right? Demon 1. Nobody knew who the fuck he was, and they plugged him in mid-season. Ended up winning a world championship with this guy. Their coaching staff has always been good at this. EG, LCS, right? Put together this random roster. They scouted 2 players nobody had ever heard of, who were Danny and JoJo. Ended up winning their first split. Very competitive in the second split, barring some of those issues that kind of unfortunately happened. And then the next year, everyone's like, okay, what you done now, right? They lost that whole roster or whatever. They're garbage. They made top 4 with Armeo switching junglers out, by the way, with Shaden. And it was just JoJo and 4 players that nobody believed in. And so it was like, you have a way, if you want to be competitive, that's what you have to do. If you want to be competitive and not pay for it, not hire the best talent, that's what you have to do. You have to have systems in place. Immortals clearly doesn't have that. Never have had that. When they brought Sharks in, I agree. I wish any project like that, you're looking at 2 years minimum. It's not even 2 splits. You need 2 years, and people never understand that. So the issue I have with Immortals is you can't say something and then do the exact opposite of how you enable that to occur. If you want to say you want to be competitive and then you do something like that, you're not trying to be competitive. You're just trying to cycle your coaching staff over and over for immediate results, but you're also not willing to pay for either the players or the coaching staff that'll enable that. So that's insanity. What do you mean? You're just hoping to get lucky?
Yeah.
I mean, and then if you're not going to do the branding stuff around the community, then what are you trying to do? What is your actual intention as an org? I never understand when in all the discussions around, who's leaving the LCS, Immortals have been like, we're gonna stay. Why? I agree with you. I don't want you to. No, but I think people around it.
I see.
Like, oh, I'm thinking, well, they have a lot of money, but like, I don't want them to stay because you're right, they're not beneficial to the ecosystem, right? They're not
I think they're
pushing
harmful.
anybody.
It's not just not
Yeah,
beneficial. Like, sure,
yeah.
maybe there's scouting combines, and I think there's a group of people that are doing that, but they are actively harming. And I maybe it was ill of me to frame it in that way.
No, I mean it's valid though. It's valid. If you're doing something that makes esports less sustainable going forwards, you're harming the ecosystem, right? If you're going out and getting multi-million-dollar sponsorship deals and then burning it, how is anyone ever going to come back and think that they want to partner with a team again? Um, no, I agree with that. I think what's frustrating is that it's one of the whenever an org has money and they don't utilize it correctly, which has been the vast majority lately. I mean, now it's gotten better. Like the last 4 years, though, it's so frustrating because you had this endless potential to do something incredible, and you just kind of threw it at I don't know whatever, like new facility or something. um,
Let me just
yeah.
give you a hypothetical. If this Immortals was allowed to have 2 years, and the first year Sharks was like, hey, I identified the Tactical and Ole are actually a really good duo, and our top laner is actually a really good top laner, and let's change out. Let's actually bring in Shaden, or let's bring in let's bring in Shaden, let's bring in Quad because they were killing it in Academy,
Mhm.
and all of a
Mhm.
sudden you have a top 4 team, right?
Yeah.
Within that 2 years, like you actually could fight for Worlds going into 2024. Like you
Yeah.
weren't just like saying stuff, but you kick Sharks, you bring in a new coach who wasn't even coaching last split. No hate to Inero. It's just this wasn't his roster, right? He didn't have
Oh
the
my
hand to
gosh.
build in it. You don't add
Then
anything
the
in.
other this I mean again I have nothing against Nero. I think he's a great person. I think he's good at what he does. He was not the Golden Guardians coach.
Yeah, he wasn't.
People keep attributing Golden Guardian success to Inero because he was the G. I'm like, yeah, it was a good roster, but you put that roster together. Who on that roster was somebody that people believed in and was going to do well? It was the coaching staff that developed that. Licorice got like basically dropped from C9. Like there's like he put a good roster together, but it was the coaching staff that actually enabled them to reach the peaks that they did and actually compete for a title. uh I think I don't know. I don't know if it's like Immortals scouting or GM or front office or whatever is so bad that they're like, oh well, he was associated with that, therefore he must be able to coach coach like what Golden Guardians did. He was the GM. I don't know. The whole thing is just so weird to me.
I agree.
Um
You brought a GM to be a coach of a team who already had a coach who was successful. Like that Immortals
yeah.
last split was the best split Immortals had since re-entering. Even though they finished last, just like
Mhm.
look at the team with your eyes, you can
Yeah.
tell they're doing very well.
I Will Dominate, who is the most critical LCS person of all time, was like, Immortals, he's like, I'm not even being sarcastic. Immortals was legitimately good this split to have. This is the best Immortals team to have gone last ever. And it's like, it's so true. You look at them play and you're like, oh my gosh, these guys actually have potential.
They beat Cloud9
But,
twice. Like, come on. They
right.
did something. Yeah.
I mean, that should be a metric of success, right? If by the end of the split, it's not about where you placed. Did you see demonstrable improvement in a roster? That is the mark of a coaching staff. So I agree. It's ridiculous that they fired the coach and then they bring in someone who was not a coach to coach better. And then now look what they're at. It's like you guys don't even, this doesn't even work on paper. How can you expect it to work in reality? So no, I definitely. I mean, I don't even know what the debate was about because I definitely think Immortals. If I had to pick, out of the 8 teams, the 2 to leave, it's definitely Immortals 1. I honestly think it's Dignitas 2.
I agree. Yeah.
I just don't see what Dig even gets out of being in the league. They heavily invested this year into their roster, obviously, and for me, it was sort of indicative of like, well, maybe Dignitas does have sort of a history in League of Legends. Like they're the historic LCS. Like they've been around for forever. They're one of the legendary teams in the LCS in terms of history. But if they wanted to end on a good note and they just like, let's just put all the money we have instead of budgeting over the next 3 years for like just put into this one roster, make a shot at making Worlds. This was kind of the team that you could see doing it, right? Like you got Spica, you got Jensen, you have a lot of veterans. They've all been there, but it doesn't feel like a team that you put together and compete for multiple LCS championships. Like it, I don't know. If you're trying to build a long-term roster, I keep XU, right? Like I don't
Mhm.
invest in Spica. I invest in my coaching staff. I invest in my resources around it. It just feels like if there's two teams that are going to leave, and then everyone's talked about 100 Thieves too, but I honestly hope 100 Thieves stays. Like I really do.
I think
I
Papa
wouldn't be
Smithy
surprised.
speculate. He said, I don't think, he said it on the Oracle Elixir Discord, but he was like, I don't think
Yeah.
they leave. So,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but also 100 Thieves is historically one of the orgs where overnight things change.
yeah, that's true.
They dropped their entire social marketing staff in 2 days, and then they rehired all of them like 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. But I agree. Immortals is for sure the number one team on my list. That's like you guys haven't done anything. You guys haven't been moving in a direction that has been showing you're going to do anything. So the one little blip you had, then you screwed yourself out of it. Like it actually, you know what blows my mind? I don't know the details of contracting and all that, how much what their contract was set up. Like it probably cost them money to fire him.
I think so too. And the other
That's
thing that really bothered me,
absolutely
go ahead.
insane to me. Like
The thing that really bothered me was the fact that this guy's on a visa. He left his family back in, and came
Yeah.
here because they dedicated 2 years. He was like, I'm going to dedicate 2 years of my life. I just came off
Yeah.
of Blacklist. I've had success. I don't need you guys. You guys need me. And then they
Yeah.
lie to him. It's not just that the
Yeah.
way they fired him. And now he has
Yeah.
to leave the country. Like,
it's absolutely there's so much to dislike about that whole situation. You can't have fans. That's the thing. If you
Yeah.
act like that, if you behave, you don't have fans. It doesn't matter how good your content is. It doesn't matter how good your branding is, your social media is. You don't have fans when you behave in a way that make people dislike you.
and don't even bother to explain, like, oh, no, we will. We'll put out a statement. And they don't. Also, what they did with Digon was so messed up. Do you know what happened?
No, wait, what?
So Digon found out, Digon's really good friends with Sharks, and Digon found out that they dropped them. And so Digon made a tweet, and he messaged, he didn't say anything. He was just like, oh snap, you guys won't believe what happened. And as soon as IMT found out, they ignored Digon, his DMs on like, hey, I want to make some sort of announcement. I also don't want to step on any toes. Let's work together so that we can both, obviously he wants the first scoop because he's the first person to hear about it, but at the same time, he doesn't want to step on, he wants to do something. And IMT just like tweeted out, hey, we've let him go. And he completely ghosted, like didn't respond to Digon. And so Digon's like, what the hell? Like I had this scoop. There was no reason for me to go to you guys and wait. I could have just said something, but I waited. I was being professional and you guys acted this way. And they were like, oh, we didn't know. Like, what do you mean you didn't know?
Yeah, this is they're one of the orgs where it's the classic stereotype of an org ran by a bunch of kids who like gaming. It's really really hard to see something stuff like that, and I get what they mean. Like, oh, we didn't know because they've never done something like run a multi-million-dollar company. They don't know the ins and outs of dealing with media reporters, stuff like that. I've seen that a lot. Like the unprofessionalism that a lot of people talk about in esports is not that people are intentionally unprofessional. They don't know what professional means. So they will just do things because it's like, oh, it's like, well, let's just say something because he's going to leak it otherwise. Not realizing, well, the reason he's approaching you is so that you can give him information that's safe to give and he can reveal it the same time you do or like slightly before. So it makes him look good. You can then cater the message and it looks better for everybody.
It's a win-win, yeah.
So stupid. Like, and it's just out of inexperience, I think. And out of like maybe, I don't know, incompetence.
Like, and then they still have their job somehow. And then but Sharks doesn't. Anyways, I don't want to keep harping on IMT. Yeah. My last topic, and maybe if you have another one we can talk about, but I don't want to keep you for too long. I'm pretty sure I know which side you're going to go on, but I'll give you the floor. My argument is Impact is not the best top laner that North America has seen. Agree, disagree?
History or?
Yeah, historically. In North America.
In North America.
People are saying he's the top GOAT, or he's even the GOAT of North America. I don't even think he was the best top laner that we've had in North America.
Well, did you say that Bjergsen was the best mid laner we've had?
Historically, yes.
And at points, sure, like, but was Doublelift the best ADC we've ever had? I mean,
yes, he had the highest peak.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I don't know. I think peak Berserker is something we just haven't seen very much at all. Like, but he hasn't had the longevity yet to say that.
That is true. I think in terms of peak,
yeah.
Who would you? I guess I'll go. I would put Huni above Impact, and Feel free to disagree with me. but-
that is a hot take. Okay.
No, it's not. Okay, first of all, look at Huni. Huni comes into the league after being up. This doesn't weigh what he did on Fnatic, right? Doesn't weigh into what he did in North America. But he had the only undefeated split. I guess he won every single game. Let's put it that way, because there were the G2 that went when it was they didn't lose because they were ties, like they were 1-1 in a lot of games. They never lost
yeah.
0-2. I don't count that. He was the only Fnatic team made it to semifinals in both MSI, the first MSI, and Worlds. Like honestly, that semifinals they should have won that game 5. I think there was a bug.
Yeah.
Anyways, we move on. He comes to Immortals, absolutely dominates. Every single top laner was this guy's like little child. He was the father of every top laner. He raised the bar for everybody in top lane.
This is like 2013 though, right?
This is 2016. No, I'll
2016,
come to more recent. This is just like his career in North America, right? Then he leaves Immortals, like he's unable to carry the Bums so hard in 2 years because honestly, they were really good teams. Like I think that legitimately that the format first of all was bad. So if it was nowadays format, he would have absolutely made Worlds and made finals. Yeah. But the fact that they had to play against the TSM, who was probably a top 4 team in the world at the time. Yeah, the best team North America has ever sent international. Like, it sucks. But again, he was like hard carrying that team, goes to SKT, wins his first split, makes it to MSI, wins MSI, goes to World, like wins the third split, goes to Worlds, makes it to Worlds finals, and doesn't win because the meta changed and it was like Ardent Sensor, comes back to Echo Fox and like plays out of his mind. He was the absolute carry. It was a very weird year to begin with, and I have a video talking about 2018. Goes to 2019 onto Clutch Gaming. Guess what? No one expected Clutch to do anything. They made it to Worlds off the back of this guy playing like just hard carries. 2020, I think he played I don't remember exactly what happened in 2020, but then was he on EG for a little bit?
He went to TSM.
Well, that was 2021.
EG and then TSM, I think. He ended on TSM.
Yeah, and then on TSM, he was injured. And guess what? They finished first in regular season. This guy was insane. And you look at anybody talk about him.
Well,
no.
So I actually worked with him. I actually worked with him.
You did? Really?
Yeah. But they did end at first, but he was sort of a liability on that team. Like he was not playing well. Huni top lane the last like year of his career was like not good.
The beginning of the first split, yes. The second split, no. He was like constantly had leads. Vladimir was crazy. He was actively playing very well with Spica. Spica had that MVP season, and I honestly argue that it was behind Huni. Also, when you talk with players behind the scenes, apparently Huni just like understands the game at a completely different level. Like, it was like Huni's the only perfect player I've ever played with. Like he knows what to do at all points of the game. He completely understands the game, and he relates that to being coached by Coma. He was like, when I went under Coma, it went from like playing a game to like poetry in motion, like drawing. The way he sees it is like a tapestry. The way he described.
I do think the split or two that Huni didn't perform quite as well. He was actually just kind of didn't care anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Talking to him, he was like, I'm just playing. He's like he lost that fire of it. And it might have been due to his wrist pain and all that, but it was also just kind of like I said, the injury is tied to the mental burnout. I think he was just overplaying competitive league. That's why he wanted to try coaching for a little bit. He kind of just didn't really want to compete at that level anymore, I think. So his time on TSM was kind of just like him floating. Same thing with Bjergsen tried the coaching thing, went back, started playing again, then realized, oh, you know what, I don't really like playing either. So I'm just going to retire. I can see where you're coming from. I do think, my opinion on like anything prior to 2018 and after has to get weighted very differently, right? Like a lot of the achievements that players have had prior to 2018, 2019 is like, it was in a time when the league was also it was easier for people to win stuff like that.
It was so much harder. There was no double ELM. Like the format was crap.
The overall skill level was so much lower that players that were like doing stuff that like insects, right? Like people saw that as a crazy first thing. Now it's like silver players are doing this, So the overall skill level of the league, the understanding of macro, the understanding of the game itself has just constantly progressed every year. And Impact has been at the top of the league, top 2-3 consistently for the last 6 years.
He finished last place ninth place 2 splits ago. Are we forgetting that Impact is the only winner of LCS to finish top laner to finish to not make it to playoffs twice. He finished 9th twice. Once on that Team Liquid, where you can blame Doublelift for not trying all you want, but again, then he goes on and does it again. Impact, people call him a force multiplier, right? I cannot give you credit when you are a force multiplier when Huni was the force. You know, Huni was hard carrying.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. Yeah, but you're now comparing like two different types of player, right?
Yeah, and I'm
Like,
saying one of them is just better.
Well, okay, you could argue, yeah, he's a better top laner, maybe. I don't really know, because again, I don't understand League at a high enough level to watch them lane and be like, this guy's better than that guy unless they're playing against each other. It's hard for me to judge that.
They did play against each other, and he always beat Impact. He
always beat Impact.
He didn't win, but in terms of like the matchups, he was always beating Impact.
Yeah,
2016 he beat Impact.
I mean,
2017 he beat. Okay, 2016 summer he did lose to Impact.
I mean,
but that was not based on him.
If it's the same way that like looking at like Doublelift or Bjergsen being the goats of NA, it's like a lot of it's based on the fact that they've won 6 LCS championships.
It's how they won the 6 LCS championships.
Well, I mean,
like Xmithie has won 6, right? Xmithie has won 6 championships. Does anyone consider him better than Blabber?
Xmithie is heavily underrated. I think a lot of other pros have said Xmithie is like one of the best junglers ever played with because he enables people. He's not a hyper carry like Blabber is. He plays jungle in order to win games. So like I kind of see Impact the same way. It's like he's not always going to carry the team, but he plays the game in a way that enables his team to win more often than not, and he has 7 championships.
I guess this is my argument. You cannot be the best in your lane when you cannot individually carry a team. Huni took that 2018 clutch, took it to Worlds. None of those players, like you can even remember, besides probably Demonte, he's still in the scene, right? Whereas
was Vulcan on that team? No.
Yeah, Vulcan was on 2018 clutch.
Yeah.
Okay, there was Vulcan as well. My bad. And then you look at Impact, and whenever it had to be an Impact carry, he never did. He's always been a force multiplier. When you look at Doublelift and Bjergsen, when they won in 2017, it was completely off the back of him absolutely carrying, right? And that's why people give him that credit.
Yeah, I would say Impact, a lot of times it's because he's picking champs where he doesn't have to carry. But if you look at Impact when he's on a carry role, like with EG, he played Jax. He had some 1v9 games. Like he doesn't opt to do that often because he usually has players around him that he wants to enable. Like he wants his mid laner to be on a carry. He wants his jungler to be on a carry. So a lot of it is that force multiplier aspect is you can't carry the team and be a force multiplier. You have to pick and choose where your resources are allocated. Impact tends to default to playing tanks. That's just his kind of desired play style, right? Because he knows he's good enough at laning. He's going to be able to get to where he needs to be on a tank. He plays Ornn, he plays, whatever, K'Sante. He knows he's going to get to a point where he's going to be able to enable his team to win, but it allows him to really do what he wants to do, which is shot call, and he wants to talk about the game itself.
So here's my question. Let's put it this way. This IMT squad, if you put Impact instead of Castle, do they improve significantly?
I think so, actually, because he has a heavy role in coaching younger players. So if you Impact is one of those players where I would put him on a squad full of rookies and expect them to do much better. The EG success that they had spring 2023, or 2022, purely on Impact and Inspired and Vulcan working with Danny and JoJo.
I heard it was a lot more inspired. I didn't work with them, but from talking to the coaches, I heard it was a lot more inspired, and Impact was like the more serious,
Yeah, but Impact was the one who would stay after practice and 1v1 people and coach them.
Oh, okay.
Inspired was the shot caller. He's the one who wants to dictate the flow of the game. Him and Impact work together a lot, but Impact is the one who's like, you need to know this matchup this way. Impact coached Jizuke a lot when Jizuke was mid laning. They would sit there and just go over scenarios together. He's very hands-on when it comes to developing players, especially rookies, because he doesn't play that much. He honestly, they call him the GM guardian or whatever, because his solo queue ranks are always below GM. So if you're trying to go from Masters to GM, you're gonna have to go through Impact, and it sucks. Imagine going into your GM rank up game and you're freaking laning against Impact, because he just doesn't play. So his account decays all the time to Diamond 1 or whatever, and then he plays it back up to GM and he just sits on it. But He doesn't play a lot, so what he does a lot of though is VOD review. He sits there and he'll go through tons and tons of VODs. He'll go through like working with players. APA said a lot, like Impact and Core, like two of the hardest workers when it comes to like hours put in. He doesn't solo queue that much though.
How much does being a good good teammate, weigh into being the best in your role? Because like my argument is, if you put Huni, right, like before he retired, even even the TSM Huni, if you put that on Immortals right now, they win way more games, because at least, first of all, they have direction, because Huni is going to be calling Armeo and telling him exactly what to do. Second of all, they're going to have an actual carry they can play around. Versus if you put Impact, guess what? They're probably like the sort of intenseness that Impact brings to a team, which we've seen it happen multiple times. I don't see them winning more games than if they actually had a carry. You have to have a team that has carries for Impact to fit in. Whereas with Huni, it doesn't matter if you have carries or not. He can fit into any team.
I think you would win more games early with Huni, and then you would win more games late if you gave Impact time. Assuming that the cultures and the coaching staff and the players had the capability to do that. If you put Impact on a team with like a bunch of players at the NACL level, are they going to get to a competitive LCS level? Probably not. You have to give them potential, right? Like, but I think when you talk about someone whose main I guess benefit to a team is not solo carrying them, it's to augment the development of that team from the beginning of the split to the end. Impact has a much greater effect than someone who just hard carries every game. Because we saw what happened with C9 when they had Summit, for example. Summit was a freaking hard carry. Summit lost them the playoffs being a hard carry, because he didn't ever develop with the team. He just always played like he did. Hard carried all the way through the split. They get into playoffs, team started shutting him down, and they crumbled. Like, he couldn't adapt to that. He could not play a low resource tank, like just sit in lane and allow your team to win. He had to solo fight and had to die 3 times under turn. And it was like, you solo lost the game for your team, even though you're trying to carry, because you can't adapt to that. So,
but Huni could. We saw him on 2017, like when he went to T1 or SKT back then. He didn't play carries until Coma basically told him, "You just play tanks. Once you're good at tanks, we'll let you play carries." And that didn't happen.
I know. I'm talking about Huni. I'm saying Summit, right? Like something. Like,
yeah.
If you have one versus the other, one dimension or not, it doesn't enable you. That's the problem and the kind of the beauty of League. Every player is not just the role they play in game. It's like, what role do they fit on the team, right? So the difference between, like we were saying, Umti and Blabber, right? They fulfill different roles on each team, even though they're both the jungler. You'll have some teams where shot calling comes from the support, and some teams where the support is a rookie. So it just depends on how those individuals fit into the team chemistry and what the play style has to be for that team in order to achieve wins. I think at some level, because there's so many variables to the game, you can't look at just individual stats and be like, this is the best top laner ever if their overall record is 50% win rate. Because so much of it is, how do you interact with your team? How do you get your team wins? I think Impact, I don't know the stats. I'm curious now. Impact's overall win rate in pro is probably a higher percentage than Huni's.
Probably, yeah. He has won the most LCS games.
With more games played too.
Yeah.
Right.
I would say probably his percentage is higher.
There's a certain level of consistency that's there.
Actually, no, because Huni in North America only lost 1 game in his first split, lost 2 games in his second split, both to TSM, and then on Echo Fox, I'm pretty sure they went 15-3. So that's like 3. So in 3 splits, he lost 6 games.
Yeah.
So I would maybe,
but the number of games is also shifted every season, which is also awkward to make stats like less comparable. Because then, like this split, they're all doing best of 3s. Are you counting like each 2 wins as 1 win, or is it like 2 separate games, or is it?
I think it's Huni played a split of a best of 3 as well. Huni played a best of. I guess Impact also played an extra, but yeah, it is a little bit different.
Weird. It's really weird. And they, he has a world championship with T1, but it was obviously the first one, so it's not like. Again, I don't.
Huni has an MSI over him, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't count like winning worlds in 2013 or 2002, whatever.
13,
like not even close to winning one like 2 years ago. Like,
yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Difficulty level is just night and day different. So, it's hard to compare. I think who to say. Like, if you were to say who is the best top laner, then I can understand your argument for Huni, and I would have a hard time arguing against that. If you were to say who is the NA GOAT top laner, I have to go with Impact. Who has made a bigger, no pun intended, impact on the entire legacy of the LCS in the top lane than Impact?
Entire legacy, I disagree. Because in 2016, when Huni came, he'd made every single top laner in North America 10 times better because it absolutely stomped them. Like, Huni single-handedly raised the level of North America, whereas Impact was like maybe better than most top laners at all times, but he never was the bar that like he may have been the bar, like you have to be this good or else Impact's gonna beat you, right? But Huni was like, everybody, if you're not like leveling up times 10, then you're not even gonna exist in the same game.
I mean, aren't you also looking at like if he raised the bar that high, isn't that just saying that the bar before is way lower? Like the overall skill level was so much worse than it is
That's
now.
fair. Yeah.
Now, you know, like because like no offense again, I love the guy. Darshan was one of the best top laners, right, in the LCS for a long time, and then
not a long time, but yeah,
good like that span of time, right? Like
yeah.
those years, and then couldn't get out of academy to compete with LCS top laners. He was the academy GOAT, right? He was the top laner in academy, but he wasn't really quite good enough to compete consistently against like even guys like like Licorice, Fudge, like all these other players at the top lane. Like I think the overall skill level again is just so much higher to even be at a baseline now. But Impact has still consistently been winning championships in the last 4 or 5 years. It's really hard. I mean, obviously, yeah, you have a down year sometimes. It happens, but it's really, really hard to have that level of consistency when it comes to a game like this because there's so many variables. You have changing players, you have changing like league rules, you have all this stuff. The meta is changing constantly. Different champs are coming into play. Like Asante didn't even exist. Now he's freaking everywhere. And like it's hard. But I think there's something to be said about the ability to adapt. And the players that have always historically done the best are the ones who don't necessarily play a style of league that they have to stick to. It's more about can you adapt and can you build the team around you in order to win. And that's kind of been, that's why TL is always top 4. Always top 4. Every team Impact has been on has been top 4.
I mean,
except for that one down year.
Oh yeah, they were top 4. Yeah. They were top 4 one split, and then the other split they were 9th.
Yeah, they had a rough. Also, that split was one of the most hyped FlyQuest rosters of all time, and it was like it just fell apart for whatever the talent. Right. So if you look at that and you look at the outcome of it, are you going to ever say any of those players were bad? Like that team was insane. It was stacked with Vulcan and like it's like none of those players are bad, but for whatever reason it didn't work. I don't think it's like it's not a knock on their individual ability to play the game. It's that team didn't work out. So the overall effect of it was that you lose when in reality, all these players are on different teams now and they're all winning.
Not Viklin Prince. Come on.
Oh, okay. Well, Prince. How? Okay.
And Spica's not winning. Come on.
God. I don't even talk about it. Prince though, man.
Dude, the drop off was so sad. I cannot envision it anything except mismanagement. Like, there's no way that guy. First of all, there's no way he doesn't win MVP. And then second of all,
what I got, and I didn't see it from the inside, but what I can gather, just kind of knowing a lot of those people and what I saw happen on stage and like during the games and all that, I think Prince just had too much ego to even listen to those people. Like.
Ego for Vulcan Song and Impact? Really?
Like, I think Prince historically has been known to have like a super, like he's just an ego player, even in Korea. And so it was like, I can imagine it being hard for them to like pull him out of a bad performance. Like if he has one bad game, it's not going to stop there. It's just going to be him kind of doing nothing rest of the game. He's also like, I've talked to high level players who are like, yeah, he runs it down in solo queue sometimes when he's tilted. He just doesn't care.
Interesting.
So I don't know. I mean, he obviously everyone saw it. Like his mechanical ability when he wants to play is phenomenal. Like he's one of the best ADCs in the world. But yeah, I could not believe that roster choked that hard with him.
Yeah. All right. It's funny. Dirty Neptune on YouTube says nothing can save IMT even as long as they have Greg Armeo. Which is funny because we were talking.
I mean, I feel so bad, man. Armeo is one of those guys. I think he did everything right in terms of how he should have approached his career. He really, his stint with C9 and like coaching and all that, and then going to EG, like he's done everything he needs to do. It just feels unfortunate that he doesn't have the circumstances to make it work, or maybe he's just not good enough. I don't, I hate to say
He
that,
hasn't
but
gotten a chance. Like if you really think about it, he's never had a
that's what I
starting chance
mean.
where he gets to develop under a coaching staff and learn. Like
Yeah.
APA has had more time working with
Yep.
Impact and getting like to do 1v1s and stuff like that than Armeo has ever been on a team. I think this is the first time
That,
he's like,
that's that's
yeah.
that's kind of what I'm getting at. I feel bad because it's like, okay, you can look at a player who's never had any success over 5-6 years and be like, okay, maybe they're not good, but they haven't, like Tomo, right? Like I feel so bad for him. Like he got the worst possible shot at starting an LCS, and it screwed him. And Kenvi, speaking of Immortals,
Yeah,
another.
Envy.
And I say this all the time. I tell the story, but I remember when Kenvi was on 100 Thieves Academy and I was working with them, and I told him very specifically. I was chatting with him, and I was like, "Are you trying to go LCS next year?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I think my only shot right now is Immortals." I was like, "You need to seriously consider what this is going to do to your career." I was like, "If you go to Immortals and you struggle, you may not get another shot. Like they
Aw.
will kind of like put you in a position in which every LCS team's going to look at you and be like, didn't really perform. Maybe we don't take him." And I was like, right now, you have so much capital being the best jungler in academy. If you don't get a shot this split, maybe you wait till next split. Summer is always when there's more turnaround. And he's like, but then I get it. He wanted to make some money. He wanted to actually start getting paid, get off the academy contract. He got signed to Immortals, had a terrible year with like the team was just not functional. And yeah, you haven't seen him playing in another LCS team since. It really sucks. But that's the unfortunate reality. And in that sense, too, when your original point, like Immortals is sort of like hurting the scene. Like that's another part of it. They're taking players that have so much potential because they're always going to try to grab these academy, NACL talents, and they're going to sort of ruin their career if they don't do well. And they can't do well. They're not set up for success. How could they possibly do well? Like,
Yeah, it frustrates me when you make judgments on players. If you look at any player, like even APA is like a really good example. You look at APA last year and his champion pool, the way he played lanes, his laning, his mechanics, his side laning, they've all improved. But the fact of the matter is, he's worked with Spawn for many years. He's had a structure where he's able to improve. If we don't give people structures where they can improve, they ain't gonna improve. And then you make judgments on their very first split or their second split, or like in Armeo's case, like he's just jumping around and never really had a coach that could sit down and actually like give him leadership. And maybe, who knows, maybe if he stayed under Sharks for like 2 years, we would be saying, hey, he's a top 3 jungler. But we're never gonna know because either he gets kicked, his coach gets kicked,
I mean,
something happens.
even his time with EG, it was so unfortunate. I actually argued with them about this because I was working with them that split. That they were splitting time between him and Shaden. I was like, you guys are kind of shafting both players. It doesn't matter that you have issues with the way that one of them plays and the other one addresses those issues. So you swap them and then you plug this guy in and Shaden's better at carrying. Let's put Shaden in when we want to play carry. And then you put Armeo in when you want to play more of a facilitating jungler. It's like by doing that, you were shafting both of them. And that's what happened. Both of them they look like crap because they're subbing in and out. None of the other players knew how to play around them. They didn't know how to play around like the other players. Like it's it's one of those issues of if this doesn't work on paper and in theory this shouldn't work, why are we doing this?
Do you have like 15 more minutes to talk about?
Yeah.
All right. I want to. Niski brought this up, and I brought this up with David as well. And I actually talked to XU after he got kicked about this. Players not developing their brands is actively hurting them more than whatever skill gap there is. Like
100%.
Yeah,
Yes,
Niski was talking
100%.
about how like just recently on the Sackdown, he was like, I've tried to explain this to so many different players. Like, look at Faker and look at Genji Chovy. It's like I watch Chovy stream every single day. Well, that's in his contract. But besides that, I watch all these T1 players stream every single day, and yet they're still winning worlds. They're winning MSI. It's not going to make you a worse player, right? What it is going to give you a better check at the end of the day.
The excuse. I mean, I used to say, oh yeah, burnout, all that stuff. I get it. You guys are busy. Now I've worked with enough teams, seen enough players. Their workload is nowhere near enough to justify not streaming.
Can you elaborate on that?
You look at every Valorant pro. Every single night they'll be like, "Hey, going live with a stream." and they'll stream for 2 or 3 hours, and it's just them playing ranked. Like Valorant, how can every Valorant pro in North America do this, yet no League player can do this?
So what do you mean
They
by
have
like
the
the
same
workload
scripts.
is not? Oh, okay, there we go.
They have the same scrim schedule. They have the same expectations. They have the same content demands. A lot of them are on the same orgs as their LCS counterparts. Yet every single night you will see Zeppa, you'll see Oxy, you will see like Rooney. They'll all go and stream 3-4 days a week. Yet 0 streams from LCS teams. Like it makes no sense. I think it's a league specific issue in North America now, where it's gotten to the point where, you know, I'll be honest, like most of these players don't play that much solo queue either. They really don't. They'll talk about workload being like, oh, you know, there's I agree there's an X number of hours in a pro lifestyle that a lot of fans aren't considering, like VOD reviews take a long time, meetings, content, all that stuff. But in the course of a day, there's easily still 5 or 6 hours available to them that they don't have to do anything minimum every night. And the vast majority of them are not playing solo queue and they're not streaming. And challengers queues, what happened to that? They wanted champs queue, they got it, nobody used it.
Yeah, that's messed up.
Inexcusable. Like I that's actually the point when that happened that I decided, you know what? Actually, maybe all this shit is true. Like maybe NA players actually are just lazy, because you got the one thing you wanted that's supposed to enable you to actually have practice level quality.
But
of
it had
gameplay.
problems with it.
But it's inefficient. I don't want a voice comm. What do you mean you don't want a voice comm? Like you guys are trying to get better or no? Like, you know, this is this is the thing that I noticed the most is when VCT came out, every single excuse that I've heard from LCS players over the years out the window. You think any professional Valorant player doesn't voice comm with freaking randoms and comp every day? It's how you play the game. You have to. You can't autopilot shut off and then blame a teammate. You know, like you have to comm. And so there's just every little thing about it. Oh, queue times take too long. And you're like, what else are you doing? You're certainly not playing solo queue.
Yeah.
You're certainly not playing solo queue because you said it's trash quality. So we give you this better quality solo queue and you don't play it. Like the amount of teams that had players that had less than 5 games in champs queue by the end of the split was unbelievable.
Yeah,
Like-
there was a time where Team Liquid were the only 5 players
That's what
signed
I
up.
mean.
Like it was only Team Liquid. They were like, we're waiting. If any other team, like, please, anybody, we're waiting. They even tweeted
I
about
mean,
it.
there were masters tier amateur players queuing up more than LCS pros.
Yeah, it's
Like,
so,
and then that kills the game quality. And then so
Mhm.
nobody wants to do it. That's what Impact said. He's like, I did it for a long time, but then I kept playing with Diamond 3 mid laners, and like it's just makes no sense. Like I used to be very much an apologist for LCS, like pros and all that. I was like, hey, the workload's really intense. It's a really stressful thing. But now I'm at a point where like, okay, the drop off when you compare any other professional gamer to LCS is massive. The amount of hours these guys put in is actually so much less. And I will say it's gotten better, I think. I don't know for sure because I'm not interacting with teams one-on-one very much right now. But I know like C9 established minimums for solo queue now. They have minimum hours they have to do. Other teams have sort of TL has never had to do that. When I talked to APA, he's like, they're all doing 14 plus hours a day.
Oh, Team Liquid had to tell Jan to not play as much.
Yeah.
He was like playing too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So last year when I was with C9, Berserker and MNS, they had to put restrictions on because they were playing way too much. They were, I mean, MNS was doing scrims and then playing 14 solo queue games in a row after.
Oh my god.
I was like,
On
dude,
my off
you're
days, I can't play
killing
that
yourself.
much.
Yeah, that's why he started to have, he's like, oh, I'm just really tight. I'm like, how many games you play? He's like, 10. I'm like, dude, are you serious? Like you got to play like 3 and take a break. He's like, yeah, I just want to, we're going near playoffs. I want to grind. Like, and so they would have to limit them. But I guarantee you, if you go into match history of like, you know, again, I don't want to throw people under the bus, but like a lot of the other players, right? A lot of the Western players, you're not going to see 10 games a day. You're going to see maybe 2 or 3.
And like
max.
freaking low masters
that.
barely. Yeah.
If that, you know,
I got
And
a
yeah,
comment. Yeah. Go ahead.
how useful is it to play your 2 or 3 games in low masters as a pro player? Like that's not even good. Like it's a waste of time actually. So I get it. If your account is decayed to masters because you're not playing solo queue, then why play solo queue? But that's such a horrible situation to put yourself in. Like,
Yeah.
I think every pro player should be mandated to maintain challenger. They should have to maintain challenger.
And to stream some of them, Ibor Quitting brings a really good point where he's saying like people don't care about their branding. Like, here's the thing: me and you talking right now could reach people and paint a picture of your brand and what is going to happen. Like, it'll financially affect you because we are talking and you're not. You could just open stream, play 2 solo queue games, and talk and say, "Hey, this is why I did that," or just like defend yourself. Just give a reason, give like some sort of story, so people don't get to write the narrative of your own career.
The amount of times I've told JoJo, if you just stream with 0 effort, 0 interaction with chat, you just play solo queue, you're already playing solo queue. Just go live and don't do anything else. Like, don't even say anything to them. You will have 1,000 people in there watching you who will just at least be aware that you're doing, you know? And he's like, yeah, but if I was gonna do that, I'd want to have like, I want to make it professional. I want to be like good at it. He's like,
What
I
does
want to
that even
overlay.
mean?
Like,
Oh my
that's
God.
fine, but like, dude, instead of doing that, you're doing nothing. You're not streaming.
I want to do 110% instead of doing 30.
I don't want to go on record and say Jojo Pune's like Jojo Pune does grind. He does grind. He does play a lot of ranks. But I'm like, if you're already grinding solo queue because you do, just put it on stream and then you can build the brand that way. Like, at least that way people see it. Because you're right, the narrative around players when they play like crap on stage is, oh, and they're not solo queuing. But at least if you're the one, hey, I streamed 20 hours last week, all of it in Challenger, like nobody can say you're not playing the game. You just had a bad week.
Yeah, and then if they complain like, "Oh, he's streaming too much," look at Faker, look at Chovy. Like, they are streaming their games and they're still playing well. I told this to XU. I'm like, look, if you had a brand, had you been streaming and had a brand, they would have never kicked you for Spica. They would have just picked you because like the backlash would have been too big. But Spica was streaming. Spica had this brand. You didn't. And actually, it's funny. XU told me the story afterwards. He was like, you know, the only reason I made it into like LCS is because of my brand. He hit Challenger or like top 10, I think, and he tweeted about it. And Jack saw that, and so Jack picked him up for his academy, and like that's what kickstarted his whole career. And then he just didn't stream, and like unfortunately,
I've been saying this since I started working with pros. Is I've told every single player you need to start getting active on social media and not just going on there to tweet at other players or tweet at teams when you win. Like, that is the most surface level way to do it. Just go on there and just interact with people. Like, tweet like, hey, we're about to play today. Like, you know, wish us luck. That's about it. Like, you just do something. And then streaming, again, you don't have to be an entertainer. You don't have to be Tyler One. You can just play your game, stream the game. People will be fans. You'll get free money. They will throw money at you. Like, what is to lose
and
here?
bigger
You know,
contracts, bigger contracts.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then you know what? Orgs want to sign you because the inherent problem with the current pro scene is that pros don't bring value anymore. They never have really, but now they really don't. Because if you don't bring a stream or some sort of numbers with you, viewership numbers, you actually don't bring them anything. Winning a championship doesn't win them anything. Like, the amount of money you win for winning an LCS title is less than they paid for the roster. So it's not actually tangibly beneficial for the org to do that if that's all you bring. Like, so a lot of players now, like, again, this is like the dichotomy between VCT and LCS is so night and day. Every single VCT player streams. Almost like 99% of them stream. The vast majority of VCT players, look at Sentinels. Half of their players are bigger content creators on their own than the freaking Valorant champ. Like, they are already making more money as content creators than they make off their Sentinels contract, but it's a stable life, and then they can still compete. They can still do their stuff. They still win. Like, the time limitation on it is not anywhere near. You hire editors. You don't make your own YouTube videos. You do everything outsourced. You don't, it's like the amount of, I guess, I don't know what it is about the unwillingness to do this in League. It's only League. There's not another game professionally.
And it's the same orgs. That's what's confusing to me. Like, it's the same org. You have Cloud9, you have Team Liquid, you have like they're the ones.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm like literally at Cloud9. These people are in houses, walking distance from each other. Yet one of them, they scrim, they finish scrims, they all start streaming, and then the other one, they finish scrims, and then they go get food and they disappear. Like, I don't understand it. It's wild. It's a League issue though, because I don't want to just rag on Cloud9. I just know them the best, but it's a League issue, right? And so some of the other, okay, look at Sniper. Do you think Sniper would have gotten the shot he
No
got
way.
without being
0%.
who he is?
0%. We would have Surdy instead of him or something like that.
Yep.
No way.
Also, one of the big issues with Surdy, right? Like if Surdy and Sniper are basically, I mean, minus a lot of other stuff, but if you look at them, they're both like two of the most highly touted academy prospects to come up, right? The difference is Sniper got a shot because he was already streaming to 1,000 people a day.
Surdy just
was
started
not.
doing it. Yeah.
He just started doing it. He's going to do great, and I'm proud of him. He had the skill level. He just wasn't streaming. And I think the cope is that they're like, well, if I focus on my streaming, I'm not going to get as good as I could be because I'm not going to be focusing on improvement. But you make the stream you focus on improvement on stream. Like, don't interact with chat. You don't need to be an entertainer. You're just showing people what you're doing. Like I don't know if they just don't believe it or what, but I was literally telling Judge Queen, if you literally don't say a word to chat except hello,
Play
and
muted.
then you
Yeah.
just do your just mute chat, ignore, like you could minimize it into another part of the screen. You don't even see it. You're gonna be a Twitch partner overnight. Like crazy. Like, and they just don't want that. I don't know.
Yeah, and the other argument is like, well, every single T1 member, every single Gen G player, they all have contracts where they have to stream. They stream, they still improve. Look at Pays.
Yeah.
Last year and this year, he's been streaming, yet he has doubled in skill. Like, he is playing so much better than he did. Look at Guma. He's been streaming for years, and he's still a top 80 carry. Look at Owner. Like, these players are streaming. You're watching their streams and VOD reviewing their streams, and you're saying, oh, I can't improve if I'm streaming. Like, come on.
Yeah. It's, well, I think you have to think of the time invested in streaming it's not going to be where you make your most improvement, right? And this is also the other mindset issue I have with a lot of league pros in North America is that they see scrimming as the only place you improve, and solo queue is something you just do to like kind of work on mechanics and stuff.
Or
just,
maintain, like maintenance versus
just maintain or like learn a new champ or something like that. That's where you go to solo queue. So once they feel, and that this is also why I think it's so egregious that so many players are like, oh, I can't play those champs. What do you mean you can't play those champs? Like, you know, Wolverine, he's a coach for Ruddy Esports. He had a tweet a couple of years ago that I resonated with me so much. He's like, why the hell are you playing your 10,000th game of Aurelia? What else are you going to learn on Aurelia here? You were in Aurelia one trick. Why aren't you playing Fizz Top? Why aren't you playing something that you have not played before and learning a new champion? Like, why are you going to go and spam solo queue playing Jace again? You've played Jace for 10 years, you know, like I don't like why. Yeah, because you see it all the time, like challenger level pro players going into ranked and just spamming Azir like nonstop. And it's like, yeah, Azir's in the meta right now. Do you need more practice on Azir, or have you already played 2 million mastery on this champion?
And you play him every game in scrims anyways. It's not like you're not playing him at all. You're
playing
already
exactly.
him.
Solo queue, you should be playing champs you suck at that are also in the meta. Like if you're a top laner who can't play carries in solo queue, you should only be playing carry top laners. Because it doesn't matter.
This goes back to our debate of like when you see doubling down on your strengths versus moving away and trying to be versatile. I actually think if you're really good at tanks, then you should just play more tanks and not carries. Like you should find out how to play the Sion.
You should play tanks you're not familiar with playing.
Yes,
or you're not,
I agree with that.
Like, you need to diversify your champ pool. I still think as a pro player, you need to diversify the types. See, the difference between a playstyle for a team and a playstyle for a player is that champ diversity enables your team to play new comps, right? Like you are actually a liability for your team when you're a 2-trick. It doesn't matter how good you are on those two champions.
I agree. Yes.
The way that the way the game is set up, you will always be countered. You'll be hard countered sometimes, and so it doesn't really matter unless you can diversify the champ pool. So I think it's absolutely necessary for pro players to have a wider champ pool that they're comfortable in playing at a pro level, but it doesn't necessarily mean that teams have to play every sort of style of comp. I think that's much harder. There's too many variables with that because that involves way more than one player just, hey, you need to be comfortable in Cassante. If you can't play Cassante in pro at this point, you probably can't go pro.
You have to play all OP champs, yeah.
Yeah. All the meta champs need to be like if you're a mid laner and you absolutely cannot play 80 mids, you're a liability. If you only play control mages, you are a liability. They cannot draft an AD jungler now. Look at
Jensen. He's never played them, and now he's Tristana, Zeri, getting like Quadra. Yeah.
His
He had to do it.
Yone leaves a little bit of desire, but that's actually not an easy chance to play.
Yeah.
According to Tempest, I think Yone's garbage, but yeah, he's like to play Yone at that level is actually very, very hard. There's a lot of nuance to that champion. So no, I think yeah, Jensen's a great example. He picked up these 80 ADCs or whatever. And that's the thing now too, is if you're a top laner and you're not learning marksman, you're a liability. Because this is the meta. You're going to have to play against Zeri top. You're gonna have to play against Lucian. You're gonna have to play against freaking all the Vayne, all the fun ADCs.
Yeah, Yoshi makes a very good point. He's like, LCS pros have a mentality that wants to put streaming on like a pedestal. Like, kind of what Jojo was saying. Like, if I'm going to stream, it's going to be the highest quality and this and that.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, if you just did what Doublelift used to do, where he would just go on stream, just start streaming, be like, yeah, today we played a game against Immortals. First game I was feeling pretty good. I thought I did it well, but my jungler, maybe did this. And we tried to help him. Like, he made the right call. We didn't do it. Like 30 minutes, your editor just takes that part of the stream, puts it in a video. You are like tripling your brand value, your negotiation power, even opening other avenues for you in your career. Like, look at people who don't. All of a sudden, we went from 10 teams to 6 teams within like a span of 12 months, right? And now all of a sudden, you don't have a job, not because you suck, but because hey, it's just opportunity, right? It's not as available. It's scarce, and you're like, well, I don't need that. I already have like 3 other doors. I can be a coach because people heard. Yeah, people heard of me talking, and I can actually get a coaching job, and all of a sudden do something that I didn't know, or like have some sort of stability.
Yeah, it's stability, and it's creating a safety net for yourself. The scene itself is inherently unstable. So if you are, let's say Jojo Kyun, right? He's gonna have no problem getting signed to a roster if he gets cut from C9. That's not a problem because of who he is. But it is sort of volatile. Like, let's say he has a Spica situation where for whatever reason, due to timing, he doesn't get a roster offer because everyone else already has their mid locked, and the team that could afford him or that wants him can't afford him. He doesn't want to take a minimum salary, whatever.
Yeah, like Inspired Whipple, it literally happens to champions.
So now he has a gap year. What is he gonna do? Oh, I have to start streaming. But like, okay, now you're trying to start streaming when you have zero, you have nothing built up. You've never done it. You don't even know how to work OBS. Like these are all things that like you need to have handled ahead of time so that if that becomes an issue or you decide, hey, you know what, I don't feel like playing pro anymore. Let's say, knock on wood, all things go south, right? And basically LCS, they're like, you know what, we're not going to do a pro league anymore. It's just going to be individual like teams running their own stuff. Now there's no contract minimum. Now there's no minimum salary. What are you going to do? Like, these players are so short-sighted when it comes to that stuff. And it's specifically league. And I wonder if it's because in league's heyday, the big league LCS pros were also like, you had Bjergsen, you had Double. So if all these players grew up looking at that, like, well, I'm not Bjergsen. Like, I can't do that. Then they don't want to do any of it. If it's like, it doesn't have to be that much. You could have, Shaden streams pretty consistently, right?
He does, yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's improved his image a lot. Like, he was toxic. He got banned for what he said. And like, no one even remembers that. Why? Because he's streaming and hard carrying his games. Like,
yeah. And I've gone into his stream a few times. He literally just plays music and just jungles.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't really even talk. He just he's like lo-fi on or whatever, rock on. He's just playing music and he's just jungling and he's just like playing his game. So I was like, it could be that. And like, people like to just, when you watch a pro, you don't always have to watch for entertainment because you bring intrinsic value by being freaking good at the game.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes I just want to see you like play. Carry on Tillia jungle. Yeah.
As I want to learn. I'm just gonna watch this, challenger pro jungler or whatever, just this mid laner, and watch how they lane. You don't have to entertain people because that's not the inherent value of your brand or your content. It's so weird to me because it's only League. Every Valorant pro is a streamer on the side. They all, they don't see themselves as content creators. A lot of them, they're just streaming because it helps them. There's no downside.
Hikaru Nakamura?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a chess player. He was signed on TSM for a little bit, then moved around a bunch.
Yeah.
But he is like one of the best chess players in the entire world. He was playing at like the highest level. He was like putting unbelievable performances, and they were doing interviews. And I was like, "What are you gonna do?" He was like, "Well, I have to get back home and do my recap." He was like, "Look, I've talked about this. I'm a content creator first, and then I'm a chess player second." And he was like, he's in the candidates. He is fighting for a spot to fight against the world champion, right? Like literally top 2 in the world. He won like 3 rapid tournaments in a row, and he was like, yeah, I'm the best person in the world right now, but at the same time, I'm a content creator. Chess is just like my side thing. It's like people don't have that mentality.
Yeah, but if you think like, what do you think has made him more money?
Oh, it's not even close. Like chess,
Yeah,
by the
like-
way, chess makes so much money right now, and it's not even close.
But like the branding around it, like
Yeah.
companies want to partner with him. You know, like they want to give him stuff, like to wear a shirt. Like I'm gonna pay you $20,000 if you just wear this hat like every day. On
Yeah,
stream. Like
it's not
it's
even
so
close.
crazy.
Yeah.
So I just they're doing themselves a disservice. They're already so good at something, and they have an opportunity that's basically just right in front. They just have to do it. So
Yeah, Ibra,
yeah,
go ahead.
I've been a big that's been a huge soapbox for me. Like since I've been working with team, like since 2018, I've told players, and how many actually listen to me? Probably two. Like
Can you say who
maybe.
they are?
Well, I mean, I'm still waiting on Jojo, but for sure. Well, it's hard to say. Well, okay, now it doesn't really count because Cloud9 forced them to start streaming minimum hours. Some of them. I don't think Jojo's still done it.
He hasn't.
Like I think it's like a meme now, but
Yeah.
he's also the problem is he's also like one of those players where he can sort of do whatever he wants and they're not really gonna like
Bjergsen
punish him,
negotiated to take streaming out of his contract, which to me was like
Yeah.
crazy. It's like it's already free money, whatever. I
Yeah.
will mention an example. When you were talking about JoJo, Doublelift won a split and then didn't find a roster that he liked and basically ended up not having a team, but he had a
Yeah.
stream to rely on. Like, imagine if Doublelift didn't have that. What would he be doing? He'd be so screwed.
Yeah.
You know, Ibo in chat actually says that like Canyon, he streams very similar to Shaden, where he just like doesn't say anything, he never talks, and he pulls like 1K viewers consistently.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like so many people would just tune in to watch that because you're good. It doesn't have to be entertainment. It doesn't have to be like a show, you know? You're doing what you do anyway. And you could even just minimize it and like not even look. Like
Yeah, you really could. I'm really happy that you're actually like talking to players about this because
yeah,
at least there's someone on the inside. Yeah.
Yeah, they just don't like I don't know what I'm lost. I don't know what the disconnect is. I don't know what the issue is. It's a specific problem in League. And every org you ask any org, like, would you prefer if your players all streamed in their off time? Hell yeah. Like that's what you should be doing, right?
Do you
like
think it's
100
environment?
Thieves is like,
Do you think it's environment? Like because everybody's not doing it, then it's like, oh, I don't want to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's very much that. There's a lot of like Champs Queue, right?
Mhm.
Why do you think TL was the only team constantly in Champs Queue?
Oh yeah,
Because
environment.
every player on TL bought into that. They have people like Core JJ. They have people like they're like pressuring them to, you have to be this way. When I talked to APA about the culture on the team, he's like, I like it because I'm already a grinder, but he's like, there's this sort of like feeling that if you leave early, they look at you like you're shameful. Like what are you doing? Like, and that environment does not exist on any other team right now. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that it exists either. I've talked to Spawn about this. I've tried to talk to different like Team Liquid players, and like this Team Liquid team is different.
Yeah.
And I want to find out why, because when this team, like obviously it's not gonna last forever, right? When it collapses, I want to have all these interviews with you guys, and people can go back and look at it and be like, oh, they used to do this. Oh, Impact used to do this with that. Oh, Spawn used to actually have these types of discussion with people, and we can sort of recreate it or like learn from it or something, you know?
I think a lot of it, and this is something I've said a lot too, is when teams are building rosters, they need to put a lot more emphasis on actually interviewing players on personality traits. Right now, I'll tell you, like a lot of roster building is X player is potentially scouted by either the scouts, GM, or owner. A lot of times thinks they're really good. They'll ask their players, "Hey, do you know this player? Like, what do you think of them? Oh, they're pretty good in solo queue. They always carry. Like, they're not a tilter. Great, let's bring them in." And so they bring them in to do a quick tryout. They kind of slot them in with the team, see how they play. If it works out, then they sort of go through the next steps. The only team that was in the past open about this is the process that we use for screening individuals on an interpersonal level. They were administering tests. They were administering a personality test to determine whether or not they're going to be compatible with other teammates that based on their scores. They were administering like feedback, like a lot of corporate based feedback assessments, that kind of stuff. Was EG.
I would have guessed.
Which
If you asked
team-
me to guess, I was so confident that it was definitely EG.
Yeah, which team had the greatest track record of putting random people together that nobody thought would do well and then overperforming every year? It was EG. Like they were the only team that was prioritizing personality and interpersonal communication skills and like how is the team chemistry going to vibe, and they got memed on for it. When EG put all this stuff, hey, we're doing all these, and I agree with some of it. Like, hey, some of these tests aren't super valid for this, but the point is that they were attempting to determine who the person is and whether or not we can build a team around it before they were looking at, is this person the most mechanical player we've ever seen, or is this person the nastiest like kindred one trick we've ever seen? Like that was so low on the totem pole, and it's the opposite for most other teams. They're looking at this player hit, the highest LP on ADC that NA's ever had. They're mechanically insane. Let's pick them up. And they don't even know how this person talks, how this person communicates with players. They don't know how they're going to interact. What's this person like when you start screaming at them? What's this person like when they're down 5 kills, they're 0-5, they're running it down. Like, can they recover from that? Like, there's so many things that they just don't know until they put them into a scrim room or on stage. And that's one of the big issues is you see a lot of players, a lot of teams fall apart because they don't know how to put these people together, right? Like that's why the FlyQuest team on paper looked amazing. I thought it was going to be really good. You have 3 players from EG. You had Prince and Vigla should slot. I mean, they're good, but they're new, so they should slot well. This should be a really, really solid roster.
Wait, 3 players? They only had 2.
Oh, they had Inspired, Vulcan.
No, they didn't have Inspired. It was Spica.
Oh, Spica. Right. Okay, so 2. That should be a really solid team, right? But they don't work together. Who knew that, Vulcan coming in maybe just can't work with Prince, period. Just could not work with him. Like Inspired and Spica and Impact have just, I guess, not played together. Like it was so like just not, there's no chemistry there. And a lot of that stuff could probably be prevented if you had better, more nuanced ways of assessing that stuff prior to bringing them in. But I don't think a lot of teams do that, honestly.
And even the coach Song, like who knew, like maybe Impact and Song are not a good fit. Maybe like Song didn't work very well. Like he worked well with like veterans like Deft and Barrel, but maybe not so much
with your point about TL. I think if you were to individually assess each of those players and ask them like, what's something that you take pride in about like the way you learn and practice League, a lot of them are like, we grind. They embrace Yan and APA are grinders. They've always just put in 10+ hours. Like that's how they play the game. Core JJ always has a disproportionate amount of hours on that. Impact doesn't, but I know for sure Impact watches a disproportionate amount of League. Like he will VOD review every region, all the time. Blabber too. Blabber doesn't play that much solo queue anymore, but Blabber watches literally every region, every team.
Damn.
Minor regions. He will name every minor region team in like CB. Like he will know what they drafted. Like it's crazy how much work he puts in. But it's not playing a lot of solo queue.
It's still work.
Yeah, it's still, as long as it's intentional work and you're getting something out of it, it's
That's
good.
the other thing. I love that you mentioned that. Intentionally playing solo queue versus like what you were saying. If you're playing low masters and like playing Silas mid and that might not exactly be meta, or playing like Malphite mid or something that you're not actually going to pull out, versus intentionally playing and trying to play things, it's very, very different. Like I had a friend who was pretty high up in the Dota MMR, like in the ladder, and he was like constantly playing with professional players, but he was getting like tier 2 team offers, but he really wanted to play for a tier 1 team. And I was talking to him about, I don't understand Dota very much, but I was like, look, when you're playing this game, I've done some VOD reviews with him. I was like, what were you thinking at this time? He's like, I was just playing. I was like, no, you can't just play, right? You have to hyper fixate on something, and you have to like be in the zone and really be like actively learning. Like, what did you learn from this game? He was like, oh, I just want to play another one. I was like, no, stop. Play one game, review your game for like 15, 20 minutes, go for a walk, come back, make sure you got those learnings and play. And I just don't, I think he didn't understand that. He just wanted to keep playing and wasn't intentional about his playing, you know?
Yeah, one player I mentored a bit about that kind of stuff was Soul, or used to be Anime Girl. Played with EG, Academy, TSM, top laner. But so one of the things that we talked a lot of Soul, it was a couple of years ago. Do you remember? Yeah, he came in. He was really, really good. He got one shot at LCS and did okay, but then they dropped him. TSM. He subbed in.
I don't remember him. That's very strange. I remember like every single
Okay.
TSM player. Oh
Yeah, he
wow.
came into the league under the IGN anime girl, but Riot made him change it.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So he
Okay,
went
yeah.
to Seoul, and then yeah, he's very very good, but he struggled with certain things that made it so that he never really could go LCS. But he was at EG Academy last, and I got a chance to talk to him a lot about just structuring practice. And I was like, right now, how do you think about practice scheduling first from solo queue to champs? It was when champs queue was still a thing. Solo queue, champs queue, and scrims. He's like, well, I don't do very much solo queue. I go in champs queue and I really try to focus on like one thing, which is usually like macro. He like was really trying to just master his macro, and he's like, that's what I focus on. But I find that when I try to focus on macro, my micro falls apart. My laning kind of sucks. So I'm trying to figure that out. I was like, okay, why don't you, instead of thinking about like this is what I want to work on while I'm practicing, because he was doing that in solo queue and he was doing it in champs queue. What I find is I can't focus on macro in solo queue because everyone's doing crazy stuff. Like nothing makes sense. So in solo queue, I have to work on my laning, which doesn't really translate to me knowing better macro in champs queue where everyone's trying to play more organized. And then in scrims, it's completely different because now my team's telling me everything. Like
Uh-huh.
so he was having a hard time putting all that together. Like what you need to think about is the hierarchy of importance determines what you focus on, right? So in scrims, your goal is to integrate with your team. And in order to do that, you have to really know your champ. You have to really know your role in that comp, and you have to know what the objective, the win con is for your entire team, and play to that at each moment. In Champs Queue, you're expected to do that with less organization, so your focus should be on macro, organizing with the team, figuring out how to best use your champ in that role, so that when you go into scrims, now you can apply what you've learned in a way that's much easier to integrate because they're talking to you, and you can actually you have a preset plan with your whole team around it. In solo queue, you're there to learn the champion. So that's what we talked about earlier. Is like you should not be going into solo queue playing your one trick, your best champ over and over in challenger. It doesn't make sense. Like you're getting so little out of that unless you're trying to learn macro. So in champs queue, if the pick is good, you don't want to just force a champ you're not really like you don't want to force a champ you're just trying to get better at just to play it because in champs queue it kind of matters. Like win rate is actually super important in champs queue when it was a thing. So I was like, in champs queue, you if the pick is perfect, you can play the champ you're good at. Let's say Aurelia. You really want to. You're super well versed in Aurelia. It's a good pick here. Just pick it and play it and make sure you dominate because in that moment you don't have to think as much about your micro. You don't have to think about your laning. You've played this champ a million times. You're not going to get this same benefit out of focusing on your laning. You're just going to play the lane and then now you can focus on your macro. In solo queue, you can't focus on macro anyway, so you should be focusing on champs you're not good at laning with so that you can focus on the micro. Because the lessons you're going to learn about macro in an environment where it's inherently chaotic are not applicable to competitive. And he's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And he started restructuring like how he approached his practices. And he's like, now it's making, because now when I'm learning the champ, I'm learning something different in solo queue. I can apply it into champs queue. I can take that to my team and scrims and be like, hey, I feel comfortable playing, this matchup now. Let's try this pick, And it's like so many pros don't do that. They just think like, these are my champs that I know I can play because I played them in solo queue. Well, these are the champs we can run. Like it's very not specific.
Yeah, it's like imagine going to different machines at the gym and trying to do the same exercise.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not gonna get if you go to the squat rack and then you try doing squats and then you go to like a deadlift and try to do squat. What are you gonna do? You're not gonna be able to. So it's like
Or
focus on
it's
different
like
parts.
if you're really really good at squatting and deadlifting and you go to the gym and that's all you ever do,
Yeah,
you're gonna get so many you're diminishing returns. You're getting diminishing returns, right? Like your ROI is no longer going to be anywhere near improvement level. It's just going to be kind of maintaining everything you've been doing. And I think that's why you see a lot of players sort of hit a ceiling in which they sort of just don't really get much better than where they are. Because they keep focusing on the stuff that they're already good at, which is, hey, my laning is really good on this champion. I win lane. Great. Can you translate that lead? Like most of the issues NA has competitively internationally are macro issues, right? Our laning isn't the best sometimes, especially against the really good teams. But I would say that in the last few years, you don't see NA losing games at 5 minutes like they used to. Like it
it's
used to
been
be
a
like
long
we go
time.
against we go against Gen G and it was like, oh my god, how is every lane down 15 CS right now? Like 5 minutes. Like what just happened? We lost 2 full waves. It was crazy. Now it's like we are relatively even or even ahead early game, and then we just lose it because our macro is just not as good as theirs. It's not as clean or it's not as quick, whatever it is. So I think a big portion of that is the fact that most NA players, when they go pro, they end up just focusing on playing their champions to win. They don't think about like, how am I actually developing a system that allows me to progress to compete internationally at a different level? And you can see it because almost every NA pro goes to Korea boot camp and they almost all hit challenger. They're clearly good enough to play, like they can compete against the best in the world mechanically. We just deal with ping issues here, but it's the macro that's just completely separates us,
I love what you're saying. In my personal opinion, once you hit the 4 year mark, like I'll give you 4 years. Afterwards, you absolutely have to have developed some sort of shot calling leadership like skills. Like Blabber not being able to take that previous C9 team and like have a direction that he wants to play, kind of like inspired and like lead the game. That is a skill that you absolutely must learn. You can't just be a mechanical AD carry who plays really well for like 4 years, like Stixxay, for example. Like, guess what? People aren't gonna value you. But if you can actually like guide the game and lead it and be a leader in team, like you just have to develop those leadership skills. Before I used to think like it doesn't really matter where the leadership comes from as long as you find someone like it's more roster building. But now I really think you need so much leadership. Like Chovy, when he lost Peanut, decided like he learned how to become a leader. And you can see it in his gameplay. He's still playing phenomenally, and at the same time, he's like shot calling. Like he was one of the two main shot callers on the team.
I mean, when you team build, somebody has to do it. Somebody who has the capability. The ADCs usually just can't be the shot caller because they don't see enough of the game itself to understand like you can't track all of that. Like it's much easier for the jungler, the support, sometimes the mid laner to kind of organize the team. Most teams I've seen, it's usually the jungler or the support working together to dictate what happens because most of the laners, all they're communicating is the lane state and what's going to happen. So top lane will be like, hey, in 4 minutes, this wave will be crashing. Like I've already built it. Like it's going to happen. This is what we need to do. I've already set it up for Rift or whatever. So this is what we need to do around it. Then jungler gets all the information from laners and makes a call. Like, okay, here's what I mean. I'm going to invade mid. Can you shove wave? Come with, stuff like that. But the ADC role is like, I mean, this is also why if you were to put a rookie in any role on a team and have them do competently or do well, where would you put him? Probably ADC. That's why Danny did well. Danny was not a competent laner at the pro level, and he was not very good at his macro was like non-existent. So if you look at EG's early games, early split, they were basically this is EG's strategy of like Danny would die 2 times because he's not very good at laning, and it drove Vulcan crazy. And they would leave him on an island, and Inspired, Impact, and Jojo would force plays on the top side of the map in order to force the enemy team to have to respond to it. And they would leave Danny to farm, for 5-10 minutes to recover that. And every single time, that's what they always picked him a hyper carry. They always, there was like a way it wasn't like that was EG's strategy. It was an adaptation to the fact that he couldn't play another style because he wasn't just at that point wasn't good enough at laning to win a lane. So this is what they designed. They figured it out. And it was the shot calling came from Vulcan Inspired and Impact, like figuring out, okay, well, how do we redistribute pressure then? Now, as an ADC though, like why are you also, if you're going to play an ADC, why are you playing another 200 games of Jinx this season? Or Xayah? Like these are champs that you've played for forever. You could, like, if you take Berserker with no practice, no warm-up or anything, and throw him on Xayah right now, he's going to perform. He doesn't need to practice this champion anymore. But you don't see any ADCs. Berserker especially said, I will not play mages.
Yeah, Gala's playing it. I mean, he's like one of the goats of.
He said, I will not play mages. He's like, I don't like them. I don't think ADC should play mages. He just doesn't want to play them. So now you have a restriction because your coach will never, ever draft you a Seraphine bot because it doesn't allow him to carry, even if the pick would be phenomenal in this comp. He's just not going to play it. So you end up having to draft something like, I don't know, like Jinx or something and have him sit and farm. And it's like there's a lot of that. And I don't want to, again, knock Berserker specifically, but this is a common thing. Like very few players are willing to spend time practicing something they suck at because it sucks. Like Swain bot is so strong. It had a 60% win rate in solo queue because people were picking it into the right spot. And the only pro player I've ever seen, and not even truly pro, was Shogo. Played it in a collegiate event.
Oh, Sven played it in playoffs.
He played Swain Bot?
Yeah, he played it a couple times in playoffs. 2018 TSM. It's been a
Okay,
while,
so
but he did. Yeah.
I was gonna say that was before I really paid attention because I started working with C9 in 2018, so I probably didn't even know who Swain was at that point.
It was against. It was literally against C9.
Yeah,
That's
that's funny.
hilarious,
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, yeah. But so like recently though, right? Like Swain Bot was
Yeah.
like kind of an off meta pick, but super strong certain scenarios. How many LCS bot laners do you think have played Swain Bot in the last 3 years?
Last 3 years, 0.
Yeah. Like I'm not even saying in a pro match, but like in solo queue even. Maybe
0.
one.
Maybe
I
one,
would-
yeah, maybe one.
Likely 0, maybe one. Maybe one
Yeah.
tried it, you know. But that's what I'm saying is like, why? You know, like why are the people not trying things? Why? How many LCS bot laners do you think have played more than 5 games of Seraphine bot?
0.
Maybe 2. I think Sven probably has actually. I think a couple of them have done it,
Oh.
like just when it was like really really popular, or like Ziggs bot was more common, right?
Yeah,
a bunch of them
Ziggs,
played
yeah.
Seraphine, like you can do it, but a lot of them, what I realized too is they'll do it once or twice to say, oh, okay, yeah, I practice it, and they're like, this champ is so piss easy, and I just click and I use abilities. I don't have to, you know, micro and all that.
That's
So they
everyone.
just do it a couple times. They're like, oh, it's good enough, right? But they don't have. If you were to say, how would you compare your mastery of Seraphine to a challenger Seraphine one trick in the bot lane, like Q pick? You're not even playing that champ 50% as well as he is. You know, like there's so much nuance to certain champions. You don't know the power spikes. You don't know any of that stuff. So like a lot of that stuff is like you could just be practicing that instead of playing another game of Zeri Jinx that you have already played on stage 7 times. You know, like you think Berserker needs more Zeri practice, like outside of scrims?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I think it's sort of a hyper league specific problem, like we talked about earlier. I really appreciate your time, man. This was a lot of fun. I know
I
I took a lot
obviously
of
it's
your
been
time.
way long, but
Yeah, no, no, it was
always
a
good
lot of
talking to
fun.
you.
All right.
I love talking this kind of stuff. It's always entertaining. So I appreciate everything you're doing. Thanks again for having me on. We'll definitely catch up soon. Looking forward to seeing more content from you too.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
The VOD of this, I'll chop it up, just the parts where we're debating, and post it
Sounds good.
tomorrow. I love that shirt, by the way. I'm jealous.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I saw my friend Basil was on the stream today, so
Yeah, I saw her.
had to support. Yeah.
It was
Are
a lot
you,
of fun.
did you-
Her segments
yeah,
where
yeah.
I'm making people draw. Yeah.
Are you did you get the access to TikTok and stuff too? You're good with that, or
I haven't applied yet, but I will.
okay. Yeah, I just want to show you got the link. But all right,
All right.
cool, man. I will
thanks,
talk
man.
to you soon.
All right.
Take care. Have a
care,
good rest of
man.
your night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Wait, why can't y'all see me? That was a lot of fun. There we go. All right, I'm gonna catch up with chat a little bit. I know I did like try to comment a little bit on stuff, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. GG's. Thanks Russell for hanging out. Love these stream with guests. This was sick. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I like the whole debate, and then we end up going into like more league specific things or more like generic things about player brands. And I know with David we talked a little bit about business and like selling out tickets and LCS and stuff like that. So I really enjoy like their expertise and the things that they care about, especially Doc Respawn. He's like, I will link his link in chat again, because he's honestly a really cool guy, and he has a lot of insights with these teams because he's worked with them. Ooh, okay. But yeah, Chovy took 4 years. I think I tried to keep up with chat a little bit. But yeah, I really appreciate like Iber Kudim bringing a lot of insights, especially like I didn't know that Canyon's stream had that many people watching. That's really cool. Yoshi, Flower, Camp Bloom, yeah, everybody that was here. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for the interview and thanks for the game content. Thanks for hanging out, man. It was a lot of fun. I enjoy doing this like debate show thing. SLJ as well was here earlier. I enjoy doing this. I do want to learn to be more like decisive. Like when you look at, for example, Undisputed, which is sort of the format I'm doing, they're like very snappy with things. And I feel like I think too often. Like when I was listening to them, I was VOD reviewing, right? They're like very direct and I beat around the bush a little bit, and I want to be more direct, even if I don't believe the argument that I'm doing. Obviously, it's a debate show. Someone has to take a side. I want to be more decisive. That's the word. Like if I'm engaging, I'm going full in. So it's still a work in progress. I'll have a guest next week again, and then I'll also eventually I want to find like a constant co-host that's just me and another person, and maybe we're bringing a third person every now and then. But I want it to be two people so we can really build that rapport. Like when you look at Shannon and Skip Bayless, they're just two people, anchors, always there. They're always doing it, and I'd really like that because then you get to like really feel out the person's style and just get better together, you know. Whereas if I'm bringing in a new person every time, I kind of have to like adapt every single time. One thing I'd consider adding a session is adding social links for you and your guests. Oh man, that's smart. All right, I will do that next time. I will have his link on the bottom every single time. Thank you for mentioning that, Yoshi. That's very smart. I will definitely do that. Tomorrow, if you live near New Jersey, you should come. There's going to be a watch party in New Jersey. You can check it out. I'll retweet it. It's going to be on Chris Greeley. LCS will probably tweet it out. There's a watch party. We're going to watch C9 Team Liquid play. It's going to be so cool. We're going to have a lot of LCS people. Mark Z might make a random appearance, like virtual appearance. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to it. Anyways, this is a long stream. I really enjoyed it. Thank you guys for hanging out. I will probably go and have an interview out tomorrow.